For the next journal reading, let's start up with the Margot's letter to Yorveth. Right now, the theme in the background is going to be Verdun's theme. I almost called it Mark Art. I like the theme of it. It's different than the end from when I did the first reading. Anyway, let's start off. Contrary to claims, Alnar Gasul is no collaborator. He yields to Larita only as much as is necessary and is never servile. Louis Merce, however, should be a target. He's kin of some sort to the commander, brought here from God's know where it has become the most important cog in the bureaucratic machine. He dances that old bag Clovesi's tune. You should get her too. I have a personal score to settle with her. Those from Leviton are all alright. Don't touch them. I suggest you make contact with Enzeska. People have grown used to her trips to into the forest. She could carry messages and nobody would notice. I think she might be a witch. At the very least, she helps my girls whenever they get into trouble. Someone will try to lynch her sooner or later, so you may offer her protection in exchange for her aid. And I have no idea what to think about that, Milena. Dimitri's letters say passage to all unit commanders and officers. The bearer of this document, a man named Dimitri, is acting under orders for the Commandant Bernard Larita. He should not be hindered in any way. In the event of his violation of the Temerian law, punishment should not be extracted, though the deed should be reported immediately to the Commandant. By the order of Bernard Larito, Commandant of Flotsam and its garrison, Louis Merce. It is hereby made known to all that the witcher named Geralt, the native of Rivia, has committed the high crime of regicide in slaying Foltest, king of Temeria. As a murderer and traitor, Geralt of Rivia has been sentenced to death by fire. A generous reward is offered for his capture and delivery to the proper authorities. He who delivers a criminal's head shall receive 1.5 said reward. Those providing reliable and confirmed information as to the criminal's whereabouts shall also receive remuneration. Beware, the witcher is armed and dangerous. 3 years among the Indegras. Indegras are forest creatures that resemble arachnids. They're especially fond of food plains, as moisture and tall grass suit them. Longer than they are tall, they move about on all fours and extremely difficult to spot as they lie motionless, awaiting their prey. Like Kikimores, Indegras are divided into castes, with warriors being most numerous, guards being less common, and queens being a real rarity. These monsters, like arachnids, hatch from eggs. The impregnated queens lay the eggs in cocoons, which hang from trees known as nests. The lesser creatures seriously guard their queens, as colonies depend on them for survival. The queens themselves remain hidden, caring little for what happens to other adult specimens. However, when their nest is threatened, they emerge swiftly and fight ferociously. Thus, to exterminate an Integra colony, one must set fire to the cocoons to draw out and kill the queen. Temerian Special Forces. Creation of these formations began. It turned out shitty shield bearers are as good as fighting as the mobile Scoia'tael units as our knight's saddle on a pig. The first Special Forces unit was formed by King Demavin, and they're commanded by the infamous White Raelia. Remember her from the first game. Their effectiveness were hand in hand with cruelty and ruthlessness in their battles with the squirrels, and their hatred to non-humans usually extended, mildly speaking, beyond professional spheres. Elves from the units had especially strong enmity towards them, and their clashes between the partisans and the special forces were always extremely brutal and bloody. Besides fighting the Scoia'tael, the Temerian special forces carried out a variety of other dangerous tasks, justly earning the reputation of effective professionals. The art of magic. The power the sorceress can command is commonly called magic in the opinion of certain sorcerers I'm acquainted with. Magic is chaos. An art and a science, a curse, a blessing, and progress. However poetic it may sound, it's hard to find a better simile. Everything depends on the person that uses the power, of course. Still is the fact that it can be used to achieve things not possible to normal humans. The Witcher signs are also a form of magic, but sorcerers look at them with disdain, since they cannot be compared to the forces the sorcerers themselves command. Without magic, our world would certainly be less interesting, and many beautiful things would be forgotten. Harpies, daughters of the Gale. There are many species of harpy, all of them kleptomaniacs, though some steal dreams instead of trinkets. They especially like dreams laden with strong emotions, such as nightmares that reoccur every night. The victims lose their dreams, or can actually be a blessing, where nightmares are conserved and the harpies encase them in crystals, creating items that strongly radiate magic. Mages desire the dreams that these creatures steal. They're even known to breed harpies on perches with a view towards fleeching their booty at daybreak. It is rare for a dream or nightmare to be powerful enough or to become powerful enough creature to satisfy the desires of a mage. He would destroy Darge's harpy's nest perched atop a rocky ledge, but set a special glistening explosive trap. When the harpy snatches the loots, the charge is detonated, and anything that survives the explosion is dealt with by gravity, the eternal foe of all avian creatures. Alright, let's get that out of there. The Vizima Uprising. The events known under the name took place not long after the Witcher mysteriously came back. The leader of the Order of the Flaming Rose, Jacques de Aldersberg, made plans to build a new, better world under his own leadership, using the power he had over the Order and fanning the conflict with Scoia'tael until it threatened the city itself. He marched against King Foltest at the head of an army of mutated creatures. Battles that took place in the city between the Order, Scoia'tael, and the troops loyal to the king are remembered as Vizima's Rebellion. Though historians cannot agree on their opinions of this event, the fact is that Foltest managed to contain the situation and the rebellion ended. The Valley of the Flowers, Alvertongue, Dol Bothana means the Valley of the Flowers. Anyone who sees this land with their own eyes must admit to the aptness of this poetic name. Once the southeasternmost province of the Kingdom of Adern became the sole and sovereign realm of the free elves following the last war with Nilfgaard, when Emperor Emir and Var Emrys gave the elves these lands in return for their wartime service. Dol Bothana is ruled by the elven sorceress Francesca Findabair, known as Aina and Lena, at the Daisy of the Valley. It remains a thorn in the side of neighboring realms. Even though its queen has been forced to distance herself officially from the guerrilla war waged by the Scoia'tael. Temerian royal dynasty. King Foltest's daughter, cursed in her mother's womb, entered the world a stillborn beast. Interred, she continued to grow until she rose from the graves of horrifying Striga. The jagged-toothed princess long terrorized Vizima until Geralt freed her of her dark spell. Years later, Adam once more succumbed to the curse, and the Witcher again faced the Striga. This time, however, politics were at play. The Order of the Flaming Rose brought on the reversion in a bid to breed chaos of Vizima and overthrow King Foltest. Horrors of war, rot fiends. Given that they are necrophages, rot fiends feed on carrion human corpses, but this does not mean they attack the living. They appear in battlefields near cities affected by plague or around villages touched by famine. See a rot fiend, and you can be sure there are many more in the area. They appear of a sudden and disappear even more quickly if threatened, so exterminating them is difficult. Tapping rot fiends makes little or no sense. Instead, they're best dealt with by cutting off their food supply, that is, burning all corpses in the area. Corpses must be incinerated rather than buried, for rot fiends are avid and skillful diggers. Without sustenance, the beast will leave in search for new feeding grounds. Grand Triple. The great Melitele is, among others, the patron of love, marriage, and fertility, nature, and abundance. Her cult came to be to the blending of these beliefs many different races and cultures held about these aspects of life. Melitele's popularity never waned, and the phenomenon is explained in various ways. I think the causes are prosaic. Myself, the cult of Melitele is a prominent woman cult, and the goddess is, among others, a protector of women in childbirth. The delivering woman has to scream it apart from the usual yells and empty promises. She will never give herself to another mangy man again. The woman has to call some deity for help. Melitele fits the bill perfectly, because women are deliver and will be delivering. The goddess Melitele doesn't have to worry about a lowering number of worshippers. Monster Murder portrayal of Witchers. Once as numerous as beasts they fought, today Witchers are seen as relic of times long gone. The exact character of their training remains a mystery. As known, it consists, among others, of the trials, process that transform the organism using a specific combination of secret herbs and infusions. Those who survive gain superhuman reflexes, speed of reaction, and the ability to see in the dark, among other traits, making them lethal foes. During their training, they learn swordplay and the basics of magic known as signs. Armed with these set abilities, Witchers can effectively fulfill their objective, that is, to protect humans from the monsters inhabiting our world. Magic and power. Sorcerer is the name customary applied to male persons capable of commanding the power, though it is but one of the many terms or phrases, most of them highly unflattering, to have been used over the ages. These terms have ranged from the rather respectful title Wise One to the somewhat less specific Bloody Son of a Bitch. The plague take 'em. As for the women of this persuasion, that is sorceress, they have been called everything from archmistress to clerical expression that I will not repeat out of regard for the language with respect to the female gender. The command of the power these mages possess set them apart above mere mortals, which can be good or bad. From the dawn of time, history remembers mages either as pure attention and courageous heroes, or as rogues bereft of reverence and faith. Human memory tends to remember the latter for longer, which may be why common folk mostly hold people this profession in contempt. The race, fear and trembling. Race or not, as some claim, the outward manifestations of an inner fear. They are visible, tangible, and dangerous on top of that. According to the teachings of the priests, those who die suddenly without completing their task in the veil of tears become such specters. Race have their own aims. Sometimes they remain unaware of them, but more often than not, they pursue their calling without the slightest regard for the living. Alright, let's go down here. Veopat is the forgotten god. Veopat is the forgotten god of the Pontar Valley, is still worshipped in certain forest settlements, but the times of his greatness and popularity are long past. Few priestesses and witches make offerings to him, yet no common folk wish to take part in their rites. In the era of human colonization, Veopatus as a guardian god, often associated with rivers from which human drew benefit. He guarded people from the danger of the forest. Poles bearing his likeness marked the border between the areas that have been tamed and those that remain wild and dangerous. Veopatus gave people fish, made sailing easier, and his name was used to ward off beasts. Yet he remained putinent and fierce these times. If those wandering through the woods come across some idiots with gaping jaws, they believed him to be a likeness of fierce monsters rather than statues commemorating once loved deity. Hey, take a drink of water. Alright, realms of the Nordlings. This realm was bordered by Kedwin in the north, Redania to the northwest, Temeria and the massive Hithamakam Mountains to the west, and Lyria to the south. The Blue Mountains lines its eastern front. Adurance coat of arms is a golden red chevron on a black field, and the capital is Vingerberg. Not long ago, the country nearly disappeared when Nilfgaard occupied its southern territories, and its northern neighbors supplied a supposed ally. Kedwin treacherously annexed Upper Adder. Though the invaders were defeated and Kedwin withdrew from Adder's northern lands, the kingdom's fate still hangs by a thread. The country has been ravaged by peasant revolts, and its central government remains ever unsteady. The Pontar Valley. If you have a morsel but geographical knowledge, one glance at the map is enough to know why the Pontar Valley is strategically important. It is here that the borders of Temeria, Redania, Kedwin, and Adern meet. It is a valley that physically marks these frontiers. They say that he who controls the Pontar Valley controls the north, so it's no wonder the cited realms have clashed here more than once. But it is often mingled with the waters of the Pontar. The reasons for this have varied. Wars waged by nobles in pursuit of political interest and merchants seeking trade privileges have been intermingled with riots and massacres, elven uprisings, and the revolts of frontier barons. All these have garnished with the occasional peasant rebellion, an event that forces often quelling factions to unite and crush plebeian mobs drunk on blood and carnage. Feudal society and the enemies. Scoia'tael is a name used by the rebels fighting for non-human freedom. In the common tongue, it means squirrels, as some would have it. It is because of squirrel tails that adorn their rebels' caps, or for the forest board they have to survive on. Excuse me. Scoia'tael formed its units over a score strong, consisting of many elves, yet sometimes dwarves and halflings joined in too. During the last war with Nilfgaard, the Scoia'tael fought in the side of the Empire, making diversions and great damage beyond our lines. Despite the provision of the Peace of Sintra, many did not disarm and continued to fight, especially when it turned out that Nilfgaard sacrificed them in the name of peace and gave the unit's leaders to the Nordlings to be executed. Ericus to study. Arachnids are lone hunters. They patiently lie in wait for their prey in order to kill it with one swift strike when it appears. The same is true for the Ericus, a huge creature that took a liking to the riverside forests, becoming their undisputed king. As ruler thereof, the Ericus will not share its territory with any other hunters, witchers included. All forces will fall back immediately to defend the routes leading to the temple. These positions must be held at all costs. The tyrant huts from another part. The Maidelte, or Midsummer, is the day of the summer solstice that marks the beginning of the first month of summer in the elven solar calendar. Elves believe that all things under the sun occur in cycles. After the Midete, the days grow shorter and the dying commences, to last until the winter solstice. Summer shrines erected this day give praise to the sun and life while acknowledging death's certainty. Spells that protect living things and draw power from the sun seed are particularly strong near the shrines, which is used to bless crops and summon fire. Even godless witchers bow before the summer shrines to augment the intensity of their signs. Alright. For Scoia'tael. I have no idea who's the worst liar, Loredo or his Canton Merce, brought here by the office of Castellan after the scandal in Vizima. Not one thing in the reports is true. Dimitri is alive, the elves are well off, Yorveth has not left and even made a deal with some witcher. Furthermore, it seems Loredo brought some remnants of Salamandra here to traffic Fistek for him, as if the money he gets from fraud is not enough. The question of why the commander isn't afraid of the capital's wrath begs an answer. Even excluding the fact that Rito uses the chaos caused by Foltest's death to his advantage, he's plotting high treason. I have no idea what his goal is. I have no intention of finding out. Send a real spy here. It doesn't soothe my nerves. Echoes in the mist. Imagine a drowner that burrows tunnels, climbs trees, is more vicious than usual, and when ambushing its prey, it does so with many of its kin. Now you have a good idea what an Ecker is. These primitive creatures are the bane of the wilderness. The inhabitants of forest villages fear them, and animals giving their nest a wide berth. Neckers are social creatures gathering in something akin to tribes, where they only repel the attackers of stronger assailants in mass. Witchers can use their full range of skills and techniques when fighting the Neckers. Signs, bombs, potions, and oils that augment bleeding are all extremely effective against beasts. Necker nests are destroyed with grape shot bombs. Margot's notes: don't like the sorceress at all. All female mages put on airs and smell of bitchiness, but this one's evidently up to something. It's clear she's not just after coin. She's pitting some people against each other if they were toys. She suspects me of spying. Is it true the sorceress can read minds? I must be wary. Or my collusion with the Scoia'tael be revealed, I would rather off myself than suffer in the Scoia'tael. From the Annals of my Common History. Dwarves are one of the elder races, stocky and bearded with strong built bodies and low voices. They are distinguished for their height, which is lower than human, of simple and direct manners. They are sometimes seen as grumpy, unkind, and greedy. But to stress in my own opinion, the dwarves are no by means similar to the latter part. At least I here to present the views of other people, even if they are dull-minded, hate-blinded buffoons. A common is the dwarves' mountainous homeland, famed for its numerous mines where precious stones and ores are mined. Many dwarves also live in human cities, for that race usually adapts to the new neighbors easily, something that cannot be unfortunately said by a large part of humanity. Despite vexations, persecutions, and even bloody pogroms, the coexistence with dwarves goes a lot better than with elves. Their flair for trade and craft make them excellent merchants, bakers, smiths, and armorers. Finally, scribbled notes. It is beyond any doubt that the same creatures mentioned in the accounts of the local booksellers offer surprisingly broad. I have investigated it as thoroughly as possible from afar, and the monster is larger than I thought. I'd probably be unable to slay it on my own. More research might help, but there's no time. Might a witcher suffice? Drowner's textbook for the initiates of the Order of the Flaming Rose. Sometimes drowned men return as monsters to haunt the living. Tormented by their own deaths, they seek to murder others. They prefer to draw their prey underwater. As their victims drown, the terror restrains to consume them like soggy biscuits. Such creatures are called drowners. They are numerous on the banks of the Pontar, as this large river with regular shipping and riverside villages to provide them with ample sustenance. Beings of the element of fire elementals, like post-conjunction creatures, hail from another reality and are aliens in our world. Philosophers claim they experience no emotions and do not think the way trolls or other more familiar creatures think. Controlled completely by magic, a fire elemental obediently carries out its summoning mage's orders. If its master's a passionate smoker, the element will provide fire to light his or her pipe, and if its master is threatened, the elemental will incinerate any and all foes. Alright. Wild Hunt. According to Nordlings, the Wild Hunt is a procession, or rather a cavalcade of skeletal horsemen that rush across the sky. On the bony remains of steeds, clad in rusty remains of armor. They wear jagged swords at their waists. Like comets, the Wild Hunt is the omen of war, which has been confirmed beyond all doubt. The spectral cavalcade ventures out in search of victims every several years, but its harvest was never as rich as just before the last war with Nilfgaard, when over 20 souls went missing in Novigrad alone after the hunt passed through. Curiously, Elven and Dwarven legends make not the slightest mention of the Wild Hunt. The Garen Monograph. Garen stands apart among all creatures, large and small, beautiful and horrible, is unique, unlike any other being. Doubtless is a post-conjunction creature that appeared in our reality in the time when the worlds intermingled. It made its home in the waters of the Pontar, where it lives to this day. Over the ages, the chronicles made several instances of the Garen appearing on the river's surface in various places. There is no certainty if these mentions apply to one or the same creature moving up or down the river. A word to the original creature's progeny seen here and there. Alright. Bernard Laredo's letter. I wish to apologize for the behavior of my mother once more. The hag has been mad since I can remember, and I always wondered how she managed to acquire enough wealth to buy the house and guarantee my office in Flotsam. Hope His Highness emissary is not permanently disturbed by excesses. Solemnly swear that the red-hot circlet was just a foolish jest. Furthermore, I can confirm I'll use my position in office according to His Royal Highness's wishes, as we agreed to at the meeting. As a patriot, I wholeheartedly agree with your Excellency's opinion. Flotsam cannot allow chaos and lawlessness. Plays inseparable from Integranium and Tarilla streets. The king is dead. Long live the king. Bernard Laredo, Flotsam Garrison Commander. Reese Mercer's report. An answer inquiry regarding a local band producing Fistek. I hasten to inform you that we have not recorded any activity of this kind in Flotsam. Excluding tavern brawls, the town is mercifully free of vice. In fact, we all owe to the energetic efforts of Commandant Laredo. Rumors of the brigand Demetria are likewise false. The rogue in question was executed for his crimes, of which I praised you in my previous report. Yeah, right. We killed him with the other report. Commandant Laredo urged me to convey that he advises you to replace your informer, as the present one apparently fabricates information. Put simply, he lies like a dog, thus tarnishing the good name of the intelligence service. The Commandant also wonders whether your next inquiry with regard to a flock of pigs flying over Flotsam or elves approaching the garrison walls. Gentlemen, please. May the gods preserve Temeria, Louise Merce, Royal Burgermeister. Captain's log. The expedition of Lochmuin has proven a success that will doubtlessly please both King Foltest, who so generously backed our expedition, as well as the university. Osmond seems exceptionally pleased. I have never before seen the sorcerer jumping for joy. Osmond tried to get the crew to mutiny, offering them valuables we've discovered, in order to keep the artifacts for himself. Fortunately, Fortress Marines remained loyal. Passing Vergen, there was a battle in which we sucked the Derridin. We had to flee, though, continually attacked by the harpies summoned by Osmond's spell. Osmond's spell still has the power to attract monsters, even though the sorcerer now lies at the bottom of that river. Soldiers bravely repel the monstrosity that harass us. I'm almost finished with the report for Oxenfurt, which sums up the results of our research and marks the location of Durden's resting place. We're almost home. Hospital Files 4. Is that 4? 14. Whoops. The patient's drawings seem to be confirmed the diagnosis is schizophrenia. The cruelty prevalent in them undoubtedly stems from childhood events. Strong trauma to be confirmed, coupled with dominating mother, have warped this poor creature's mind. The patient will receive treatment. I've decided to increase the dosage of her mixture. In addition to its healing properties, the Karaksh seems to force patients to reveal the truth about themselves, and the truth frees us. Yeah, it's just a few more. Whoops. Did not mean to go over there. Medical notes of patient 15. Patient is persistently delusional. He claims he'd been abducted by the Wild Hunt. He recounts fantasies of a world where genocide happened and where unicorns wander human graves. Sometimes his delusions contain elven gardens. Furthermore, the patient claims that when he escaped the Hunt's captivity a year ago, so much time has passed in our world that he saw the graves of his children. Hospital files to medical records of patient number 19. The eldest of our residents, the patient has been with us longer than any other. Cold water therapy has failed in his case, and there's been no promise of improvement. I have him chained and reduce his food rations to weaken the strength of the illness and limit his self-destructive tendencies. I've begun to employ herbs. The woman manifests strong symptoms of schizophrenia. The Vord Margaret Beauty decided not to employ the standard therapy, red hot circlet, but instead increase the herb dosages. As she was prone to having fits of aggression, I have heard the patient chained. I've had the patient chained. Picture pain on the wall should be analyzed. Oops, I can't read that. The patient has contracted dysentery. There is no hope for him now. They have him isolated in order that prayers be said for him. Also increase doses of herbs. They seem to have some healing properties, but incidentally also loosen tongues. Alright, to the next part. Alright, locations. I like how they have them separated in chapters, so I can wait to do chapter 2 until I complete chapter 2 and have the full log entry of it. Alright, anyway. The wilderness surrounding Flotsam was a thick, impassable wood where inexperienced travelers could easily lose their way and fall victim to wild beasts, or even more probably, elven arrows. Rarely used, thickly overgrown route led to Aedirn, but given Foltest's dangers, most travelers preferred to journey by river. Brothel. Flotsam's brothel was one of the 2 noteworthy attractions available to visitors and locals, yet unlike the scaffold, the bordello kept its regular hours, offered a regular repertoire, and had a regular staff. Flotsam, a river port and trading post, lies along the upper course of the Pontar, among inaccessible forests in the valley that bears the river's name. Numerous trade routes have met here, and the Temeria and Darien border is located nearby. Land travel in the region is arduous and dangerous, for Scoia'tael units prowl in the woods. However, as they say, elves like cats are shy of water, so most travelers and merchants chose to sail the river. Flat-bottomed barges, punts, scows, native and seagoing cogs visit the harbor, ferrying goods between Aedirn, Kedwin, Temeria, Dania, and Sidaris on the seashore. No wonder then that the ostensibly small outpost was of vital economical importance. He who controlled it drew immense profits of trade, and at the start of our story, Flotsam belonged to Temeria, and its small garrison was tasked with enforcing the law and providing protection from river pirates, Scoia'tael units of monsters inhabiting the surrounding forests. Excuse me. Alright, Labadan. This small settlement nested against the walls of the training post was supposedly founded long ago by Aedirnian settlers. Even if true, this is of little consequence. Though the village was a complete backwater compared to the provincial outpost, Labadan and Flotsam depended on each other because most of the area's fishermen, boat builders, tar makers, and hunters inhabited the settlement, providing products and services which no frontier community could live without. Elves and dwarves made up a large share of Labadan's population. Tensions between them and the local humans were lower, and the trading post proper as they were all united in their daily labors. Ruined Bridge, a stone bridge on the road to Aedirn, has certainly seen better times. The local troll has been renovating and maintaining it, but this unusual toll collector has come to alcoholism, leaving the bridge to fall into ruin. The altar of Valette, the forested wilderness lining the banks of the Pontar, conceals many secrets, among them an altar dedicated to an ancient deity known as Valette, nested deep in the forest glade. The spot is well hidden from prying eyes, and the dangers of the wood discouraged those who would seek it frivolously. Geralt, however, had no fear of the monsters and good reason to visit the mysterious site. The inhabitants of Flotsam and surrounding described nearby elven ruins as less than flattering terms. The most would limit themselves to a heap of stones, my lord, but don't be going there alone or neck or catchy, or other similar phrases. I learned more when I bought Cedric a drink, where blindweed and bravar entwined splintered marble buildings of captivating beauty had once stood. Today only the ruins of the baths and the old statues remain, testifying to the past splendor of the place. The Kayran's lair. The monster's lair was located near a small shoal by the ancient ruins of an elven bridge. Wrecked riverboats, heaps of algae, and the stench of rotting flesh unmistakably identified the spot to where the Kayran had been taken a liking. That, at least, is how it was described to me, for I was in no hurry to risk an expedition through the forest, only to tease a cranky old man in his den. When the wind blew from the ruined bridge, one could smell from oneself that there was a little exaggeration of the tales of the Kayran's aromatic presence. Stinks so bad my eyes watered. Prison barge. The barge moored in Flotsam's harbor was used as a floating prison for captured Scoia'tael and those accused of collaborating with the guerrillas. In unusually cramped and squalid conditions, the prisoners awaited transport to the final place of imprisonment and then interrogated in the inevitable noose. Yorveth's hideout. If you had any knowledge of Yorveth's hideout near Flotsam, the Scoia'tael leader uses a command post which coordinated his unit's operations. The way there was dangerous as it was defended by more than elven swords and arrows. Monsters inhabiting the surrounding forest were its natural guardians. Having a guide increases one's chances of reaching life, yet finding it did not necessarily mean one would return safely. Upon entering the lion's den, one can only hope for its owner's favor. Not many Dwan could count on that. Okay. Alright, I guess we'll start with Louise Merce. Louis Mercer's a typical example of widespread bureaucratic and nepotism. It was rumored that he had outright fled Vizima after bringing some unsavory troubles down upon his head. His cousin Laredo then granted him a comfortable posting in Flotsam, and Merce saw this typo of this as a second chance. Farad, in Flotsam, Geralt puppeted a pair of strange scholars. The alchemist Farad was one of them, and his colleague Gaspar tried to convince the Witcher to take part in a mysterious experiment on Witcher physiology. The study would only yield results many years down the road. That's the same thing. Truly an enterprising man, the merchant in Flaventi had found a niche that produced him a decent income. Though specialization was extremely narrow, this was the key to his success. For the secret of commerce is to be exclusive provider of certain category of goods or services. Thus, Feveranti was still in business despite his forced stopover in Flotsam. Margot, the proprietor of the brothel, was a hard-nosed businesswoman, yet she separated her flock of girls at almost motherly care. It turned out that Margot was a spy for Yorveth. She decided to use that connection to avenge her lover's death. Einhard Gazel, in addition to being well-informed bookseller, Einhard Gazel was also an accomplished barber. And discovering this, Geralt learned the only person in Flotsam would be nice to be able to do anything about his hair. If Lobodin's non-humans had been organized in a community, the dwarf Einhard Garzel would have been the closest thing to its leader. Though the Scoia'tael considered him a collaborator and a human leash, Einar tried to represent the non-human minority as best as he could, even if that meant budgeting between his members as commandant. Furthermore, he ran into something akin to a bookshop. Given its location, which was a complete backwater, his selection of titles was quite impressive. Alright, I read these guys. Shorab is Lobodin's alderman, a simple man, but nevertheless blended his penchant for storytelling with desire to teach and impart wisdom. His tales pertain to those times long past, traditions worthy of preservation, and legends that had all been forgotten. He cared for the community he led and represented in a Neon's village. You count on him for help. Sendler, Lobodin's tanning and leatherworking was the trade of Sendler, a skillful and reliable artisan. He ran a small stall with goods of his own making, but also accepting commissions for specific products. In these hard times, he made ends meet by working hard with his own hands. Melina. Life was not easy for the non-humans of Flotsam, and Melina was no exception. The elven woman was suspected of leading soldiers into Scoia'tael ambushes, a charge that could easily send her to the scaffold. The elven woman had indeed been luring soldiers into a trap. Her fate was now in Geralt's hands. Though the Witcher did not reveal her complicity in the murders, the elven woman could not trust him. This let her repay him with betrayal. Yet even then, the Witcher did not stoop as low to kill an unarmed woman, and simply drove Melina away. And Zeka, the local herbalist in Lobodin, took care not to stand out in any way. Though some people respect women and know much about herbs and folk medicine, others fear them. Skilled herbalists are often thought to be witches and suspected of sorcery, so they must remain mindful that human mistrust can quickly turn to hostility. And Zeka's anxieties were augmented by the fact that she was also a priestess of Eopatis, a deity that's once been revered in her region. Thus, she generally preferred not to draw too much attention to herself. Cedric, for reasons that were not entirely clear, this wise and experienced elf had chosen to live among humans. He worked for the people of Flotsam as a lookout and a trapper, and none had better knowledge of the surrounding forest. Whether it was local plants or wildlife or the dangers that lurked among the trees, Cedric was the local inhabitant's chief and often only source of information. Heroism sometimes extracts the highest price. When Triss's life was in danger, the elf did not hesitate to defend her, who was wounded mortally, as it turned out, and thus Cedric died, though his sacrifice was not in vain. Rupert. Geralt's first encounter, Rupert was in Rimm's asylum and the forest beyond Flotsam. The Andernian medic claimed he had come to the area with his friend Gridley in search of rare herbs. However, it appeared that he underestimated the dangers lurking in both the forest and the ruins. Something was missing from the story, however. Rupert had been a medic in the field hospital during the war. He and his friends had committed a crime back then. Years later, the wrath of an Nilfgaardian soldier they had tortured to death summoned them to the scene of the crime as to have his revenge. Crimes beget punishment. Crime begets punishment. In this case, was no different. Geralt had no desire to defend murderers, and Rupert, his friend, got what they deserved. Rupert's friend was in a dire state, lost in the midst of the somber ruins, the wilderness forsaken by gods and humans alike. Geralt found him easily and learned more about him, including what had led him to take such risks. Gridley had been stationed in the area during the war. His unit had tortured a Nilfgaardian soldier to death, and all in the name of finding a treasure. Years later, the murderous man's wraith uses power to force Gridley and Rupert to return to the site of their crime. Gridley shared Rupert's fate to pay for most of his past crimes, for Geralt decided that he would not stop the wraith from extracting revenge. The Troll of Flotsam. Like most of his kind, the troll living near Flotsam had built a stone bridge and demanded a toll from those crossing it. The folk of Lobodan quickly realized it was a preferable alternative to be keeping the structure in good order themselves, so the troll's presence was not a problem for anyone. But believe it or not, the troll took to drinking like the most degenerate hobo, thus providing that alcoholism is not unique to the more developed races. Personal tragedy was behind the troll's drunkenness. The death of his wife. She'd been killed by unknown assailants. Once the death of his beloved had been avenged, the troll put himself together, promising to rebuild the bridge and quit drinking. Dimitri. Comparing Dimitri to his sanguine hyena would then be insult to the poor animal. Unlike this beast, the scoundrel fed not only on carrion, but also on human and non-human misfortune. It was thus that he gathered his blood and money. Even monitoring Dimitri in the story elevates him from far more than he deserves. And let us merely note that the Witcher took his life and say nothing more about the son of the bitch. Arnault supposedly involved in the commercial dealings with Bernard the Riedel. This man was a frequent guest at the Commandant's abode. Syrian. Syrian had served with the Orvis unit as the Elven commander adjutant. Captured and imprisoned on the prison barge by the Riedel's men. His position was inevitable, to say the least. He still demonstrated the pride and stubbornness so characteristic of the Ansin. Derea, the elven girl at the brothel of Flotsam, was a favorite of many clients and of Margot herself. Fortunately, she was brutally murdered by the blood-drunk mob during the massacre. Elias. Scoia'tael units are made up chiefly of young, rash elves who need not think twice before they take up the arms in the fight for non-human freedom. Elias was one such elf and was considered one of the best warriors in Jorvis unit to boot. Cecil Burden. When we arrived in Bergen, we learned that the town's elder was named Cecil Burden. The former dwarven miner was typical of his kin, realistic, substantive, and possessed of a sober outlook. Bergen needed an administrator like that, so Burden was, beyond all doubt, the right dwarf in the right place. Scalian Burden, Cecil's nephew, the young Scalian Burden, had been taken in by the alderman after the lad's parents perished in one of the non-human massacres that occurred in Addern. As a friendly, hardworking, and efficient as his uncle, Scalian took it upon himself to act as Bergen's official representative in his uncle's absence, providing all newcomers to the town with any information or assistance they needed. That's a Valette. Okay. Still a good chunk for her. There's our water. It's not there at the time, but I heard tales of the show of power Triss put on the beach near Flotsam. Though she was weakened and barely conscious, the sorceress managed to sustain a magical barrier, and the three that survived the Scoia'tael arrows. One moment. So, magical barrier, and the three survived the Scoia'tael arrows thanks to her. Nobody's surprised that Triss knew Sheila de Chancerville. A more attentive observer would certainly have noticed the chill in the greetings, as well as Triss's evident dislike of her elder colleague. The sorceress Grace's desire was to be one and the only woman in Geralt's life, and to forget all about the troubles and dangers they had recently experienced. Geralt agreed to her proposal, but before they could act, fate showed them how hard it could be to carry out such romantic plans. Triss was kidnapped by Letho. Geralt and I feared what he might do to her. Believe me, he was eating me alive, making rest impossible. Searching Sheila's quarters, talking to her neighbor, brought more questions than answers. It appeared that Triss had known the woman she had talked to, but the fragments of conversation recounted to us remained mysterious. Chris had reached Ader, and there was more evidence to prove it. I think it would prove it difficult, however. Alright, read that. Pretty sure King Foltest won't have anything else, seeing he's dead and all. Dandelion, do you have anything new? Discretion, a virtue that always professed, obliges me to remain silent about the circumstances in which, though the person of Vernon Roach, I began working with the Temeria Intelligence Service. Suffice it to say that there comes a moment in everyone's life when facing great events that they cannot remain indifferent. And before my very eyes, and so I could not stand aside as history took shape before my very eyes. My dedication to the cause brought me to Flotsam at the time. There, though, on an unfortunate incident occurring involving twins at the local brothel, a town guard and a dog, a cat, and an oil lamp, I would be on the scaffold in the town square, which I barely escaped with my life. What the fuck, Dandelion? Obviously, when Geralt decided to continue his search in Bergen, located in the borderlands soon to be engulfed by the flames of war, I chose to accompany him, for the Witcher could at times be naive as a child and knew as much about politics as the ghoul knows about cooking. Thus the chances were slim to none that, bereft of my help, he would manage to find new leads without getting broiled in some trouble along the way. And as friend, I clearly could not allow that. I'll start at the list of Vernon Roach's achievements. The list of Vernon Roach's achievements and the heroic deeds are almost as long as the list of the atrocities and depravities he allegedly committed along the way. It is a fact that, as the scrawlings of the wall in the University of Oxenfurt say, pacifying non-humans like wallowing in mud. Everyone gets dirty, generally with blood. To put it mildly, Roach was irritated with Geralt's decision, and his trust in the Witcher did not grow. Because of the contracts of Scoia'tael, Geralt lost a chance to work with Vernon Roach. Their ways parted. Lucy did that. Vess had a steady hand and sure eye, making her the best sharpshooter in the unit. Not many could match her throwing knives either. I read his thing. Aaron Levette. The mysterious individual now had a name. It appeared that this Letho, whoever he might be, was playing his own game, one in which the Scoia'tael had become impediment. Yet his ultimate objective remained a mystery to Geralt. Letho had indeed been working with the squirrels, doing their wet work for them. Geralt would soon learn the answers to many more questions. In the ruins of death of the Elven Bath, Geralt and the mysterious assassin stood eye to eye a second time. Geralt was surprised by which he learned Letho and Geralt had been a witcher. What is more, that there were more Kingslayers, and they and Letho had worked together to assassinate the two dead northern monarchs. The Witcher and the assassin were also no strangers. In fact, Geralt once saved Letho's life. Their discussion ended abruptly as arrows whistled through the air and swords clashed. Letho demonstrated his strength and skills by beating Geralt black and blue. Before leaving, he announced that he was on his way to Adarn. Kingslayer proved true to his worth and kidnapped Triss, wounding Cedric mortally in the process. He forced Sorceress to aid him by teleporting them both to Adarn. Alright. He has some people like Laredo or Roche or Riveth was a common criminal, his hands stained by the blood of innocence. Indeed, the list of those he had cut down. Actually, Yorveth is a full thing. I forgot that I had met him before I did the reading. Pretty sure I did the reading when I jumped off the boat. Anyway, they see all elves are beautiful and they are born thus. In Yorveth's case, someone set out to change this, marking his face with an ugly scar that the elf particularly hid beneath the crimson headscarf. Yorveth was a living legend, the elusive leader of a Scoia'tael unit whose members gave no thought to laying down their arms and continued the war against humans. Stories of his deeds and his deep hatred of Dwan painted more back into the vengeful ghost than to an individual made of blood, bone, and flesh. Certain sources claim that this Yorveth was the Kingslayer's ally, and thus involved in recent events, yet Geralt's first meeting with the elf brought few answers, and ended with the Scoia'tael archers laying down a deadly barrage. Indeed, it seemed that this time the elf would only ever answer the witchers with arrows. Yet some people like the Rito or Roche, Yorveth was a common criminal, his hands stained by the blood of innocents. Indeed, the list of those he had cut down in his fight for freedom could easily rival the number of ballads, romances, and deities in my repertoire. The elf was certainly a dangerous individual. He was, however, not a bloodthirsty monster drinking water. It's a lot more reading than Witcher 1, or at least in one session. Jeez, still have all those other ones. Okay. Indeed, the list of these he had cut down from his fight for freedom could easily rival the number of ballads. Okay. He was not, however, a bloodthirsty monster, even cautious and aware of the game he was playing. He jumped at the chance of testing Lethal's loyalty, becoming Geralt's ally, and at least temporarily. Fighting side by side certainly helps dispel distrust. The Witcher kept his word, which Yorveth appreciated, and the path to further cooperation stood open. Scoia'tael leader had a vision, and his pursuit to put him in altogether different light. Granted as it was, the plan could either be considered incredibly ambitious or purely insane. Whatever the case, he needed allies, and though if he found none, he was more than prepared to forge ahead alone. Yorveth was loyal, told to place their trust in him, and in return their trust. And this is undeniable. He respected Geralt grew after they freed the prisoners, and the elf would not hesitate to repay the debt he had incurred. I hadn't met Zoltan yet. The dwarf Zoltan Chevalier is a close friend of Geralt and mine. I met while we were sneaking through the forest and wilderness of Brugge and Sodded when war raged all around and the hooves of Nilfgaard and cavalry thundered on the high roads. Like many of his kin, he later fought at Brenna and the Macam and volunteered detachment, a unit that contributed greatly to the victory, although this fact is sadly ignored by most chronicles. After the war he wanted to start a business, even though he thought about taking a wipe, yet fate had things arranged a bit differently. Zoltan had proved his friendship to the Witcher many times, eagerly standing at his side in the moment of need, disproving those who claimed that each and every dwarf is a spiteful, aggressive son of a bitch that do not care for human plight and that coexistence is impossible. I know many non-humans, and if anything stands in the way, coexistence is human ignorance, spite, and ungratefulness. Say a dwarf would get himself hanged for a friend, but Zoltan was in my company on the scaffold for another reason. The local authorities had accused him of colluding with the Scoia'tael, and that is usually enough to earn one of the main role in the entertainment, like a morning execution. The charges that Zoltan had contacts with the squirrels were not entirely baseless, though he did not actively participate in military action. The dwarf knew the unit's leader Yorveth among others. It was not surprising, really, that having encountered the aforementioned human spite and gratefulness at every step, Zoltan sympathized with the dwarven and elven freedom fighters. He was balanced in his views, however, and valued loyalty to his old friends above all else. Zoltan went with us to Vergen, and with enthusiasm worthy of his military past, began training in local militia that would soon see its baptism of fire. Though it appeared that they would have a hard time, Zoltan was ready to defend the cause he believed in, fighting at the sides of elves and men. At the time of the story, Bernard the Rito was commandant of the town watch of the river port and trading post of Flotsam. He was well suited to the position, amply demonstrating this through his brutal and heavy-handed approach to enforcing the law, meting out justice to the town. The Bourge, veteran of the Temerian army, was perfectly happy with his position posting in the backwoods, as he had turned the borderline settlement into a private fiefdom, which he ruled through fear and might, executing judgment in a whim. I was exceptionally lucky to escape the news back then, despite my deepest desire to the contrary. It would not be the last time we saw Bernard Laredo. Despite imitating a smokescreen of law and order in Flotsam, Laredo was benevolent to non-humans. Emperor Emir was to proponents of democracy. Given the slightest excuse, Bernard would gladly get rid of the trading posts and environments of all who were not human, using any means available. Much evidence suggests Laredo's profiting headfully position from the extortion, unlawful confiscation of goods, and brazen bribe-taking. He would enlist local goons to beat and intimidate all those around a cooperative, and this was very much the order of the day. Laredo yearned for some spectacular success in his fighting at Scoia'tael. Those prison barges were overcrowded already. Capturing Yorveth remained his deepest desire. This vile's individual duplicity and his fidelity to his personal loan was apparent to anyone who paused to look at him. His sale of Flotsam, an important trading post to Kingdom of Kedwin, was to be his crowning swindle, and the fanatical ruffian cared little that would also render him a traitor to his country. I think I read the Tales one. Seems that every other person we took part in last war with Nilfgaard, such are times in which we live, yet we best remember those who made their marks in the annals of conflict. John Atalis, Constable Temeria, is one such person, supreme commander of the Colonel forces in the north at the Battle of Brenna. Natalis fought valiantly, commanded wisely, and contributed vastly to his victory, despite being outnumbered by the enemy 2-1. He did not rest on his laurels after the battle. Instead, he pursued the foe, routing him nec Nutanis Claudus, and nearly so, leaving but a few stragglers to flee beyond the Yargara. John Natalis was honorably rich for his deeds, and a square in Vizima now bears his name. For Foltest's death, Natalis served as a regent of Temeria. No, from experience, the magicians are not above lusting for power. Among sorcerers alone, there are many whose ambition leads them to pull strings, moving knights and other mighty forces of this world, to command elements in spectacular fashion, summon genies, bend fate to delicate royal proclamations, or at least force others to eat chicken with cutlery. This is why magicians such as Sheila de Tarnseville, known as Corvial Loner, for the part of the others, Lady Sheila was not known to interfere with politics, at least not visibly. Instead, dedicating her days to research, strict, calm, and collected. Unlike other sorceresses, she had not displayed her feminine charms, though she'd flirt with men, jiggling her posterior before them at every occasion. Though I must remain true to myself here, the world would undoubtedly be a much poorer place without typical sorceresses. The reason for Sheila de Tarnseville's presence at the back of our town like Floss was initially a mystery, yet it quickly became clear that she had to come there because of the Karen, a river monster. Sorcerers gladly used the organs of exotic creatures as ingredients for magical preparations, and Sheila was no exception. Sheila's presence also turned out to be a lucrative opportunity for Zoltan, however odd that might sound. The dwarf cut gems for a magical apparatus. One has to admit that Sheila's help proved to be useful. Sorcerers did not fear the monster and bravely fought, aiding the Witcher with their powers. It appears that Sheila had a very specific plans concerning King Foltest of Kedwin and his attempts to father her heir. From what we have been able to tell, the meddling of Sheila and other sorcerers in the world of politics was further reaching than anyone had imagined. Sometimes a person named sinks in memory and brings fear to one's heart in the first mention. Who's a mysterious Sarah? What goals drove him to what role he would play? Geralt had yet to learn of this. I don't remember Sarah. What the fuck? Oh, right. I remember now. Eccles. When he first learned Eccles' name, the Witcher had no idea who he was. He did not have the slightest inkling of the role this individual would play in our story. Insult. The Witcher once said in his life he had met thieves who resembled city councilors who were the mega touts, harlots who behaved like princesses, and princesses who smelled like pregnant cows, and kings who looked like thieves. King Foltest did not look exactly like a thief. With all due respect, he was not far off. He owed his resemblance often partially to his bearded countenance, beady eyes, and wandering yet penetrating gaze. His annexation of Lormark and called Upper Edirne by its natives at a time when Edirne was fighting up Nilfgaard and Horde at the southern border was also considered a theft. The now dead King Demavin judged his deed severely and communicated this in curt yet resonant words. Yet this is not the sole reason for King Foltest's reputation as an unpleasant person, much bolstered by the monarch's ambitious quarrels with his neighbors and his ruthless policies towards non-humans, who he persecuted with passions, squandering his realm's strength and funds. The aging Foltest did not have a living heir, and the ruler was that he had found producing another son somewhat troublesome. Foltest's virility may have lessened with age, but his ambition certainly had not. The king wanted to wage war and reclaim Lormar, a province he had already given up once, no matter at the cost. Alright, need to take another drink of water. Shortly the first time Geralt and I encountered Philippa Eilhart, the jewel of the court of the Teredagor, and once trusted sorceress to King Vizimir II. Philippa was the most talented mages of those times. Only a handful ever mastered the art of polymorphy. Her intellect and influence she held at the Redanian court were not to be underestimated. Proud, independent, and extremely beautiful, as graceful in a fanciful yet elegant dress as in a man's traveling outfit. She was beyond any doubt the most attractive woman I've ever known, yet I could not count Philippa among the most of the females. Despite her indisputable, thorough, chilly charm, her gaze alone was enough to make the most confident men shudder. The mere thought of spending a night with her to make their flesh creep. At the time Philippa our heart was staying at the town of Bergen as part of Saskia the Dragon Slayer's inner circle. Her motives remained unclear to say the least. The former court magician had never been known for altruism. However, one cannot deny that without her help, Geralt would not have found his way through the magical mist. Philippa rendered him an invaluable service at the time. Saskia! Jesus. But that's nice to have all this lore. I like it. Nothing drives a revolt forward like the right leader, especially one who's a young girl known for performing miraculous feats of valor on the battlefield. From Joan of the Arc coast to the infamous Falca, history's full of women who led fanatically devoted hosts to victory. Interestingly, all those heroines were not only charismatic, but also extremely beautiful. The squint-eyed, gap-toothed, and pockmarked generally have trouble arousing the masses. Saskia, who men would follow into fire, was no exception. She was a smooth-skinned lass with blonde hair, dark brows, and large eyes and shapely lips. Her full breast perfectly complemented her rounded hips. In other words, she was the ideal icon for rebellion. For a dear reader, if a man in battle receives appropriate motivation in the form of a lovely female arse, he is likely to achieve miracles in its wake. When there is no such arse to lead the way, the freedom fighter's thoughts quickly turn to harvest time and his own women, and a half-pint of booze at the inn. News had already reached us of the heroic Saskia, the woman who held Cadwin's armies at bay. At this time, however, it seemed like little more than exaggerated rumors. As with any true hero, there were many incredible tales about Saskia. Some claimed she was invulnerable to fire, and thus to survive the terrible battle when Sabrina had rained the very flames of hell upon the combatants. Yeah, remember Sabrina from the DLC? Or not DLC, the add-ons? Yeah, I think that episode would be up. If it's not, then there's Sabrina on one of those. And my favorite one, the neutrality. Anyway, where is it? The girl was also famous for killing a dragon. One would be hard-pressed to find better material for a local hero. After King Demavend's death, Prince Stennis became heir to the Andarian throne, at least in name, however. Pride and chilly deposition rarely win the love of one's subjects. This is very much Stennis' problem. His youth did not strengthen his claim either. Though no one openly questioned the prince's claim to the crown, Stennis did not have enough support to actually have it placed upon his head. Given the situation, sending out important events would have been political suicide. The war for Pontar Valley gave him the ideal chance to bolster his position by demonstrating what a good ruler he would make. History has shown time and time again that when the realm is in chaos, deeds rather than words grant one a legitimacy in the eyes of one's subjects. Stennis greatly desired to prove himself to equal or superior to the Virgin Aedirn. He had strongly supported from the nobility, yet the common folk had few reasons to sympathize with him. Alright, two more. Deathmold. Apart from the few chance encounters at the official banquets, Geralt had the occasion to meet and speak extensively with Sorcerer on Thenidine during the bloody coup, when all manner of mages stroked at each other's throats and the council of the conclave ceased to exist. Deathmold and his brother Drithianum, both in the service of King Esther de Corvier at the time, attempted to remain neutral as events unfolded. To no avail, however, those who allied with the souls of Nilfgaard thought nothing of this impartially of others, and many mages simply perished, brought down by fanciful ways by their college spells, or pierced by the arrows of the Scoia'tael summoned by the by the plotters. Drithium met such a fate, while Deathmold saved himself by fleeing. Deathmold then filed the opening for a sorcerer advisor in the court of King Hensel of Cadwin, and proclaimed himself, proceeded to place all his abilities at the monarch's disposal. And Yarp and Ziggurin. Our friendship with the Yarp and Ziggurin stretches back a long time. It began during the famed hunt for the Golden Dragon, which not only was caught, but also beat up its hunters. Was not caught, but also beat up its hunters. Those events were later described in one of my ballads, and anyone interested in the story should read it. Ziggurin, like most of his kin, is characterized not only by his love of gold, but also of his broady sense of humor, sober outlook, and pragmatism, loyalty to his friends. Geralt mentioned that he later met Yargan and his lads in the Majesty's Secret Service. Majesty in question was being Hensel of Kedwin. for whom they were escorting a secret cargo, though their situation was not cheerful at all. They nevertheless say to the Witcher, easily providing that a dwarf won't abandon a friend in need. Ooh, take a little break. Okay, I ran already read because that's from the book. Whoops. Oh, hold on. Fire elemental. That's what they look like in this game? That's interesting. Oh yeah, because I'm thinking of the other thing. From the first game. Ericus, we read about that from the books. The Drowner, we got the Rot Fiend. Necker, and then there's the Harpy. Yeah, just want to make sure it's the same stuff that was featured in the books. Well-balanced dagger, we got that. Robust Witcher Silver Sword. Studded leather, hardened leather, and dagger hide reinforcements. Ultimatum, blasphemous trousers, blasphemous gauntlets, blasphemous boots, blasphemous armor. Main thema, Witcher Silver Sword, Clawler, superb leather trousers. If they actually had any like story stuff, I'd read them, but robust for Witcher Silver Sword. Hunter's armor, Harpy trap, Karen armor, Karen carapace armor, biter, conflagration, leather, oil, robust cloth, elemental stone, essence of water, amethyst dust, diamond dust, studded leather trousers, hardened leather boots, leather jacket, amethyst armor enhancement, diamond armor and reinforcements, heavy leather jacket, light leather armor, long robust gauntlets, Karen carapace reinforcement, fury, Talger winter, yellow meteorite ore, Temerian sword, sword of Kangorn, robust short sword, robust cutlass, red meteorite ore, jagged blade, blue meteorite ore, use get through wound. Traps. I think this is just the tutorial stuff, so I'll just skip through this. Let me finish going down below. I saw something dark. Or maybe darkness? Oh, that's what I saw. Alright, Lapwing. Just as Gladwall regenerates vitality slowly but consistently, Lapwing restores vigor. The potion's effect is stronger than that of Tawny Owl, produces some side effects. Lapwing intensively weakens the body, reducing the Witcher's vitality and resistances. To strengthen themselves, Witchers take Golden Oriole and swallow together with Lapwing. Potions colors is serious intoxication and imbued. Potions are mainly used by Witchers who specialize in casting science in combat, and those by preparing to fight monsters. To perform, so strong attacks must be parried. Hangman's venomous toxin is equally lethal to humans, elves, and dwarves. Applied to a blade, deals more damage than any other coating. Oil is ineffective against monsters. Gladwall helps Witchers retain the body regenerate much faster than usual. No wonder Witchers often consume when preparing for a fight, especially powerful beasts. Gladwell is a stronger version of the Swallow Potion. Gladwell courses through the veins, however, is burned into Witcher's body, causes them to deal with less damage and lose vigor at an accelerated rate. These side effects can be reduced by drinking the Rooker and Tawny Owl potions. Potion significantly increases toxicity when imbued. Gladwell is recommended before long fights, but it is slow, constant regeneration of vitality, produces user an advantage over other opponents. Arachnid oil. Arachnid oil is a universal formula that is effective against any creature susceptible to poison. Simply apply it to a blade, wound your opponent, and wait for the poison to take effect. Oil is ineffective against creatures and are resistant to poisons. White reference to concoction. I fucked that up. Anyway. Invented by a famous mage, a potion helps the Witcher survive wounds that would normally be lethal to him. The buzz from the powerful brew, however, adversary affects coordination after consuming it, and although he's fortified, the Witcher deals reduce damage for a short time. The side effect can be alleviated by drinking the Rook potion. Potions very significantly increases toxicity when imbued. It should be consumed before fights. It can prove particularly difficult. Tiara. This singular potion affects the Witcher skeleton, hardening bones and strengthening tendons. Each time a Witcher parries an opponent's blow under the potion's influence, he loses less vigor than he would had he not consumed a dose of Tiara. The catch, however, is that stronger bones and joints detonate stiffer limbs and weaker soft tissue. Witcher strikes with less confidence, and so the sword damage he deals is reduced. His vitality also declines. Potion causes serious intoxication when imbued. Potions recommended for Witchers rely heavily on their swords rather than on magic before fights against monsters. employ strong attacks, which must be parried. The Thunderbolt potion augments muscle power and thus damage dealt by using a sword. As simple as it is ineffective, the brew is a more powerful version of the Rook potion. Unfortunately, Thunder Brew may cause weaker muscle fires to rupture, which increases both vitality and its regeneration. These side effects can be alleviated by taking the Swallow potion. Potion significantly increases toxicity when imbued. Potion is recommended before fighting particularly resilient or heavily armored monsters. Necrophage oil. The blade grease increases sword damage dealt to necrophages, i.e. all creatures that devour corpses. It is the most effective oil against these monsters of this type. Oil is ineffective against humans and monsters other than necrophages. This blade increases sword damage dealt to arachnids and creatures similar to insects in their physiology. It is most effective oil against monsters of this type. This oil is ineffective against humans and monsters other than insectoids. Oil, that's the oil thing. Witchers who drink the wolf potion are more agile during fights or special attacks, like causing poisoning or heavy bleeding, are more accurate and effective. Potion has no known side effects when imbued. The brew can cancel side effects of Malleable Forest and Virga potions. Potion causes minor intoxication when imbued. Wolf is recommended for witches who apply oils to swords or specializing in inflicting additional effects, such as incineration during fights. This explosion of a Zerrikinian sun is so abrupt and bright that it instantly, though temporarily, blinds anyone who glances at it. Foes thus blinded become easy prey for the Witcher. The bond is ineffective against monsters that cannot be blinded. Players can be very convenient. The Witcher's out of the cat potion is accompanied by comrades who do not share his ability to see in the dark. Detonate the flare bomb and see the alchemical reaction illuminate the surrounding area for a short time. I don't remember getting that. Huh. Devil's Puffball. The Devil's Puffball, also known as the Peasant's Fart, emits a cloud of poisonous gas centered on the detonation site. Any creature within range of the toxic cloud is poisoned. The bomb is ineffective against creatures resistant to poison. It's advisable to use against creatures attacking groups. Spectre Oil, which is applied this grease to the blades before fighting ghosts, apparitions, and all manner of damn phantasms. Most effective oil against this type. Oil is ineffective against humans and monsters other than race. Mongoose provides protection against a Karen's highly venomous mucus. Potion should be consumed before fighting a Karen. Stench Ball. The bomb releases a cloud of gas whose odor is so unbearably foul that chases away even dwarves, not to mention raw fiends and bullfors. A particular joker might use this to ruin a banquet, but witchers use stench balls to flush monsters out of their layers or to catch a breather during an exhausting fight. Red Haze, perhaps the most insidious invention of the Zerrikinian alchemist. Reddish haze emitted by this bomb upon detonation causes hallucinations and aggression, leading creatures which inhale the gas to fight each other. Bomb is ineffective against creatures that cannot be hexed. While Alfred's enables the most important invention failed to find broad application, it proved splendid as basis for the Grape Shot Bomb. Highly democratic explosive that wounds anyone within range, whether human or monster. Grape Shot is effective against nearly all creatures except perhaps the most powerful. Whirl is a highly universal oil applied to the blade, increases damage dealt to foes regardless of their type. Witchers, however, generally prefer to use blade coatings designed for specific opponents as they are more effective. Whirl is recommended for situations where the identity of the possible foes is unknown. Virga, vigorous favored by witchers assign greater importance to safety than to mounting bold attacks. The brew increases the witcher's resistances, rendering him less vulnerable to special attacks of monsters, including poisoning, incineration, bleeding. Virga is stronger than Gold Oriole, but has some side effects. When focusing on defense, the Witcher is limited in his ability to execute subtle attacks. The Witcher thus cannot deploy attacks as which himself have become more resistant, be it poisoning, incineration, or oils that cause increased bleeding. The Wolf Potion can be used to limit its unwanted side effect. Potion moderately increases toxicity when consumed. Potion is recommended before fights against monsters that employ powerful special attacks. It is effective against creatures that cause bleeding, are venomous, or breathe fire. Stammelford's Potion, created by Herbert Stammelford, a famous member of the First Conclave. This brew is readily used by witches who rely on magic, since this augments the intensity of signs, damage done by the igni, and the impact of the ard, and the defenses of Quen, and so on. Unfortunately, the potion taps the witch's vitality of his power, thus reducing it. Witches compensate for this loss by consuming the Swallow Potion. The potion moderately increases toxicity when imbued. It is recommended for witches who rely heavily on magic or than on traditional weapons for any fight against monsters are vulnerable to special attacks issuing from signs. Maribor Force. Maribor Force is considerably boosts his vigor. To consuming it, the witch tirelessly parries blows and can cast many signs in a row. It is, however, a devastating brew that causes minor twitching and reduces vitality, accuracy of special attacks, such as those that cause poisoning, incineration, or bleeding. Its side effects can be alleviated by consuming the wolf and swallow potions. Potion causes serious intoxication when imbued. Potions used by witchers who specialize in casting sign, and by those preparing to fight monsters strong attacks that must be parried. Brock helps the witcher focus, increases the effectiveness of all strikes designed to cause one of the many critical effects to the witcher's arsenal: poisoning, bleeding, incineration, and the like. Such close concentration, however, weakens the witcher's defenses. Intent on dealing damage to his foes, usually becomes susceptible to attacks as his resistances decline. This loss can be counterbalanced by the Golden Oriole potion. Potion increases toxicity very markedly when imbued. Brock is recommended in situations where the Witcher has been applied to Oil's blade or specialized in combat, employing additional effect like incineration. Tawny Owl. The Tawny Owl speeds up the regeneration of vigor. After consuming it, the Witcher can parry monsters' blows and cast signs more often. Potion is weaker than Lapwing, but generates no side effects. It can also be used to alleviate the sides of Gadwall. Potion moderately increases toxicity when imbued. The potion is recommended for witches specialized in casting signs, those who fight monsters and employ strong attacks, which must be parried. Its lowest toxicity and virtual lack of side effects makes it ideal for combining with other potions. Let's test something out real quick. Okay, so I've read those. This would probably be kind of what I do, is go back left one. Because thankfully, every one of those starts with a quest on the left-hand side. I didn't realize I was rereading some of the old ones until I read the Tawny Owl. But this way I can just read the ones with exclamation marks. Witches rarely use fire in combat as it conjures up shadows that can be disorienting during a fight, however, when facing hordes of monsters, they often set aside finesse in favor of using weapons of mass destruction. The Dancing Star, a bomb that bursts flames, is one such weapon. Bomb is especially effective against creatures that attack its swarms and are vulnerable to fire. It can also be used to ignite the cloud of gas produced by Dragon Dream's bomb. Mentioned as certain Zerrikeen and religious sects claim that Dragon Dream bombs are filled with vicious and all-consuming destructive fire, from which the bomb's name. Upon detonation, the bomb releases a cloud of gas that ignites violently when exposed to open flame. Clouds with multiple Dragon Dreams can ignite one each other in chain reaction and incinerates creatures and spread out over a large area. Alright. And we got all those done. Cool. Then want to check something out before I continue? Give me 1 second. According to traditional eyewitness accounts, a wild hunt abducts people, forcing them to join its mad gallopade in the sky. Its harvest is especially rich. Just before or during a great war, like a few years ago, Novigrad, where over 20 people went missing without a trace after the wild hunt passed. Some of the abductees managed to escape the cavalcade back in the world of the living, but the stories were told so extraordinary that they were always considered insane. One of the insane asylum's patients claimed they had been abducted by the wild hunt and be taken to a world where unicorns saunter about lush elfin gardens. When he finally succeeded in escaping the hunt's grasp, he returned to this world only to find his children aged and died. So many years had passed. Stories of the wild hunt do not appear in the dwarven and elven cultures. It's quite interesting, for the elder races must have faced the wild hunt long before humans did. As it seems, the dwarves ignore everything on mutual terms, while the elves are mysteriously silent on the subject. According to the Nordlings, the wild hunt is a procession, or rather a cavalcade of skeletal horsemen. Norshka is the sky, and the bony remains of steeds, clad in rusty remains of armor. They wear jagged swords at their waists. Like comets, the wild hunt is an omen of war, which is confirmed beyond all doubt. The spectral cavalcade ventures out in search of victims every several hours, but its harvest is never as rich as just before the last war with Nilfgaard, when over 20 souls were missing in Novigrad alone after the hunt passed through. Curiously, elven and dwarven ledgers make not the slightest mention of the wild hunt. Magic. Power source command is commonly called magic. Curse blessing of progress. That was in the book. Future of love. That was another book thing. During my long stretch with the Geralt, I know little more about this particular brotherhood or guild than learned tomes provide. On top of that, I am obliged to discretion, so shall write nothing more than necessary on the subject. Once as numerous as the beasts they fought, today the witches are seen as a relic of times long ago. long gone. The exact character of their training remains a mystery. It is known that it consists, among others, of the trials, processes that transform the organism using a specific combination of secret herbs and infusions. Those who survive then gain superhuman reflexes, speed of reaction, and the ability to see in the dark, and many other traits making them lethal foes. During their training, they learn swordplay and the basics of magic known as signs, arms, and the set of abilities of which can effectively fulfill the objective, that is to protect humans and the monsters inhabiting our world. That's from the book, Valette. Valette is a forgotten god of the Pontar Valley, still worshipped in certain forest settlements, but the times of his greatness are particularly long past. Few priestesses and witches make offerings to him, yet no common folk wish to take part in their rites in the era of human colonization. Valette is a guardian god, often associated with the rivers, to his true benefit. Dwarves. I read that, Dal Bothana. You can see what Dal Bothana looks like by like a little drawing. It's pretty cool. Mounts the code arms go to show in the back. Anyone who wishes to be considered an educated man rather than a common boor should mention Temeria first when the northern kingdoms are concerned. The realm's coat of arms is a black shield donned with silver fleur-de-lis, and its capital is Vizima, where the royal palace erected by King Foltest stands. The country extends its protection by several surrounding domains, including the mountainous dwarven homeland of Makaman. Currently, Temeria's neighbors include the mighty Redania, the wooded Kedwin, and Sedaris, known for truly poetic poetry of Eldon Marks, a troubadour unworthy of the title, for chiefly devotes himself to besmirching the work of other superior artists. Two other places in Temeria essentially essential to our story must be mentioned. Firstly, north of Vizima, near the White Bridge that links the banks of Pontar, stands a proud fortress of the walled-down La Valette family. Secondly, further up the Pontar lies a small river port trading post of Flotsam. Both are prove important to the beginning of our story. Yeah. Did I read these? Situated in between the Bra River in the north and the Pontar in the south, Redania is one of the Norse more important kingdoms. Its coat of arms is a crowned silver eagle and a red field. The eagle grips a golden scepter in its talons, and a small black shield and a golden cross adorns its proudly protruding chest. Despite recent unrest, the country survived unscathed and intact. The crisis that followed the death of King Vizimir the Just. Trangor, the king Raviv's seat of power, is the country's capital, though the free city of Novigrad is its largest population center. In fact, Novigrad is acting as the capital of the world, a center, cradle of commerce and culture, where an enlightened man can breathe his life as long as he does so away in the back alleys. Old Musty and scholarly Oxenfurt, the home of the author's alma mater, is another one of the kingdom's noteworthy cities. During the last war with Nilfgaard, Redania joined with Temeria, Adder, and Kenwer, and other northern realms to repel the invaders, and the role of the Redanian Corps played an important part during the Battle of Brenna. The formidable ranges of the Blue, Kestrel, and Fiery Mountains define the eastern and western boundaries of this densely forested, cold, and harsh domain of Kedwin, whose coat of arms is the black unicorn rearing on a golden field. The realm's capital, Adkern, was the seat of power of King Hensel, a man known for having a violent temper and pursuing radical policies toward non-humans. That could be attributed to the fact that Scoia'tael units constantly caused great injury to the wooded land and its inhabitants, launching many brutal guerrilla attacks. Local human populace responded with massacres perpetrating on the assimilated elves and dwarves inhabiting the country cities, and so hatred burned with blood bred blood. Those who called for peace accused of treason often died at the hands of the kinfolk. Furthermore, Kedwin was involved in the age-old feud with neighboring Edirn of the territory of Lower Mark, and that country casts a pall over reflections between the two countries, as you clearly see the echoes ring out in the story as well. Lying we report. I can read these in a sec. We guys know the Pontar Valley. Yeah, we read that in the book. Yep, that's that. And where important trade routes converge, Temeria's capital city, picturesquely on the shore of Lake Vizim is the valley of Isabel River, a tributary of the Pontar. The city is divided into 4 teeming quarters, which were home to thousands of hosts, travelers from all corners of the world. The royal palace and the court are both found here. The city boasts markets, temples, forges, shops, banks, workshops, inns, and brothels. Since our storage is not concerned with Vizima directly, I will not end my description here and urge those interested to consult other sources. She does not appear in our story. The elf Francisca Frandamar, known as Anda de Grenard, the Daisy of the Valley, deserves mention of the coup of the Thayanite Island, during which she sided with the mages who allied themselves with Nilfgaard. Francisca began the queen. Yeah. Let's go down here. Scoia'tael's you know your rebels fighting non-humans. That's from the book. It's also from the book. Okay. Books I've read, I mean. Alright. Now it's just the quests. I'll probably just start with the top one. The Assassin of the Kings. When I continued recording. Okay, let's do the quest now. Just outside Flotsam, Geralt saw Foltest murderer once more. The assassin was in the company of Jorveth, the commander of a Scoia'tael unit. This was surely no coincidence, as it would turn out later, the encounter was deliberately staged indeed. From that moment on, the witch began to wonder if he could use the elven leader to get to the assassin. From the very beginning, the prison ship moored at the wharf attracted Geralt's attention. Non-humans, actual or alleged Scoia'tael, and their collaborators were imprisoned below decks. When Triss told the Witcher that an adjutant of Jorveth by the name of Syrian was among the prisoners, our hero decided to speak with him personally. He and the sorceress proceeded to the wharf, hoping to reach the unit's leader, and by extension Letho, through Syrian. The intelligence proved true, however, Geralt was unable to speak with Syrian, for the elf was writhing in agony and dying. Before Triss could start healing, Geralt had to use the Axis sign to calm him. Following the conversation with Jorveth's adjutant, I always fuck up that word, whatever. In the search of the Kingslayer gathered momentum. However, other matters of greater importance to Geralt could not wait. The Witcher had a very serious conversation with Triss Marigold, the results which were detailed in another thread, and only after he finished what he asked did he continue the investigation. Triss had enough of serving Temeria. She wanted to leave it all behind and go far, far away with her beloved. However, Geralt couldn't forget that Roche had freed him from prison and wanted to repay the debt. Deep in her heart, the sorceress knew the Witcher needed to finish what he had started. She began preparing infusion from the Rose of Remembrance, while the Witcher had a serious talk with Roche. In the end, he agreed to one more thing for Roche, to help capture Jorveth. Geralt went to see Zoltan. Zoltan was a very helpful dwarf, a fact which anyone who has helped to empty a cask of beer could attest. Geralt didn't have to repeat himself, and before he could say searching for squirrels in this forest smells of suicide, Zoltan the Witcher marched to the Scoia'tael meeting place. Geralt indeed found Scoia'tael in the place indicated by Zoltan. He learned where to find Jorveth and was warned about a beast prowling in the area. The two evils, Zoltan prepared to face the monster. He was certain the squirrels were preparing an ambush. The forest monster was an Ericus, a creature so vile and dangerous that its description could cause ladies and sensitive young men to faint. While the Witcher, no creature is vile and is easy to kill or hard to kill. Oh shit, oops, sorry. Uno momento, I had to scroll back down. It was easy to kill, hard to kill. Unfortunately, the Ericus was one of the latter. In fact, the Witcher learned the hard way. The Ericus had been slain, but a more dangerous foe emerged from the forest. It turned out that Jorveth had been watching as the Witcher battled the beast. Intrigued by his hero's bravado, he even deigned not to have the intruder shot, as was his custom. This way, Geralt had a chance to discuss Letho's betrayal with the elf, and the elf was every bit diplomatic as the situation allowed. No, that the situation did not allow much leeway for the lies of Zoltan and Geralt hung by a thread throughout. Fortunately, the Witcher's information provided compelling enough that Jorveth not only heard them out, but agreed to work with them. Zoltan returned to Flotsam and Geralt struck a deal with Jorveth. They decided to set a trap. The Witcher bound the Scoia'tael leader and led him straight to Letho. He hoped that the gift would earn the Hulk's trust and that we would divulge information about his employers. Finally, the Witcher's desire was fulfilled. Geralt and the Kingslayer stood face to face in the sword class. Our hero had hoped to punish Foltest's killer, but he met his match. Geralt has always been the master of his own fate, and you should be amazed that he decided to betray Vernon Roach and surrender to Yorveth. You don't know the Witcher well. As he thought of getting the Kingslayer and avenging Foltest was the most important thing, and he went straight for it. Only his friends know how naive his idealism can be. The Kingslayer defeated and humiliated that. Wow. I don't know why I'm fucking that up. I guess it's all the talking from the 17 other things. Talking for an hour and a half straight tends to slur my words. Humiliated Geralt, and when he was done, he left for town. Yet the Witcher could not give up so easily. He knew Letha wanted to get Triss, so he ran to save the imperiled sorceress. Though Devinman was already dead, Letha still had business in Adarn. He had to get there fast, so he kidnapped Triss Marigold and forced her to open a magical portal to the town of Virgin on the Andarian border. Geralt was too late and could not prevent the sorceress's abduction, but he began to pursue it as soon as he done with Flotsam. Another vision came during returning memories. Another vision also came during an interrogation, but this time Yorveth's adjutant was the one interrogated. The smelled apples brought the memory of the Isle of Avalok, a mysterious land where Geralt had arrived after the events of Rivia. The Witcher once more lived through the wondrous experience of that place, but he was not to cherish them for long. Wonder turned into fury when Geralt saw a woman being kidnapped by the Wild Hunt. The abductor was very important to him. The Witcher realized that searching for her became his main goal in life. Triss Marigold decided to accelerate the process by which Geralt would recover his memory. She wanted to use her magic and the Rose of Remembrance for her spells. Indeed, a Rose of Remembrance for her spells. However, Triss Marigold was kidnapped before she could prepare an infusion from the wondrous flower. Geralt did not regain his memory and had to make do with the random visions that occurred during his pursuit of the assassinated kings. Rough landing. Vernon Roach's ship finally reached the vicinity of Flotsam, trading post governed by Commander Laredo. Roach wanted to meet as a informant, yet unsure of the commander's loyalties, chose not to dock in the harbor, rather to land on the beach to conduct a bit of reconnaissance before bringing the ship in. He took to scouting in the company of Geralt and Triss. Oops. Keep doing the left stick and not the right. It is prudent to inform the reader that, on account of his profession and personality traits, Vernon Roach had many enemies and possibly no friends at all. By many enemies, I mean a legion, and not a weak one at that. In Flotsam alone, Roche counted Commander Laredo and the local elven unit's leader, Yorveth, among his foes. The latter crossed our hero's path, and when a hunter of squirrels meets the gorilla's best-known leader, the pleasantries can only last so long. The elven partisans immediately attacked from hiding, and Geralt's company only avoided becoming arrow-ridden hedgehogs thanks to Triss Marigold's presence of mind. Vernon Roach talked to the sorceress, exhausted by her protective spell. Vernon Roach took the sorceress, exhausted by her protective spell, into his arms, and Geralt covered the company with the sword, leaving a trail of corpses behind. Our heroes pushed towards Flotsam. At the town gate, our heroes were greeted by Temerian soldiers. Only then did the Scoia'tael withdraw, and the Witcher managed but a glimpse of the faces of Yorveth and the Kingslayer, who accompanied him. Unable to confront their foe, the company proceeded to the town and searched for Roach's information. By the gods, stringing up sods. Cultural events are rare in the province. That isn't surprising when a rarity like the hanging of the collaborators takes place. The whole town turns out. And when a Nilfgaard do as Nilfgaardians do, Geralt and the company proceed without hesitation to the scaffold square to partake in the local entertainment. At this point I enter the scene, I, Dandelion the Unequaled, as described by some ladies, poet, lover, secret agent, friend, and confidant of Geralt of Rivia, and at the moment a legal corpse with a noose around my neck. On the scaffold I was flanked by the dwarf Zoltan, also a friend of the Witcher, and elves whom I never met before. As they say, Rivian once volunteered for the scaffold so a condemned criminal would not hang alone, but I had no desire to die. Geralt would find a way to free me, especially since I was Roche's aforementioned informer. The Witcher's a frank, straightforward man. Without much forethought, he chose the direct solution. He thrashed the guards and then tackled the executioner. Saved by Geralt, I breathed a sigh of relief. Then while Zoltan wiped the sweat from his brow, this world would keep the greatest of its living poets. There was no end to the greetings, and that's when I learned about the events which had brought Geralt and his company to Flotsam. As well, on a foreign man, I could aid them in the search, thereby repaying my debt of gratitude. Let me scroll down real quick. Alright, let's... Okay. Decent proposal will be the next one, I believe. Yeah. Decent proposal. When the dust of the gallows is settled, Rito invited Geralt for a talk. Even if we ignore the fact that witchers like troubadours and scholars never refuse free board, it was a good occasion to feel out the commander. Geralt accepted the invitation. Geralt reached the place in the company of Vernon Roche. If he had been going to a country dance, I would have considered it a poor choice. However, his aim was gaining information about the Kingslayer. The commander turned out to be a busy man, and our heroes were readily turned away at the door. They decided to wait downstairs and talk. When Geralt realized that Rito's important business was with the sorceress, he never gaps. You should know that the Witcher is extremely partial to sorceresses and never misses the opportunity with one. And the mistress of magical arts afforded him exceptional favor. Can you imagine the thrill he felt at the news that the sorceress was holding up a clandestine meeting with the most important man in the area? Sneaking around the back of the building to eavesdrop was the only course of action. It should be added that one of the merchants invited to the party told Geralt where to find a piece of the trap for the catering. Even the witch was thinking of a way to hunt down the monstrosity prowling the river, and the trap could prove handy. Our hero only had to sneak to the back of the Rito's mansion to a chest standing on a wooden platform by the wall. Skillfully evading guards and assorted obstacles, the Witcher moved throughout the garden to the back of the building. Once there, he overheard the commandant and the sorceress conversing. They were clearly involved in some scheme together, yet just as clearly at each other's throats. It was also well worth hearing. Our hero, silent as the days follow him, Marshal Quirrell, returned to talk to Vernon Roche. Richard, having overheard this and that, Geralt found Vernon Roche, and the two went to see Laredo, this time using the front door. Laredo made the Witcher an offer. Geralt was to capture Yorveth and thus repay the debt he had incurred on the scaffold. I need not explain the difficulty of this task. Suffice to say, the entire military garrison had been unable to complete it, in spite of very poor odds. The Witcher accepted the job. Thus the Witcher left the Commandant's mission as a friend. Laredo was certain he had found the perfect tool in which he carried out his less than honorable plan, but time would prove just how wrong he was. Yeah. Tricked that motherfucker. Alright, Rosa, remember. Oh, shit. Oh my god. You take a drink of water, bro? Alright. Interrogating Syrian made Geralt feel strange. Perhaps a touch of nerves certainly caused anxiety. The Witcher could almost hear the memories locked away in his mind calling for freedom and battering at the door that kept them from him. Seeing the Witcher's behavior, Triss decided there was no time to lose and asked Geralt to find a rose of remembrance. This powerful psychoactive agent could hasten the recovery of his memory. Geralt and Triss went off to search for the flower, or more precisely, Geralt followed the sorceress who knew how to reach the place where the roses apparently grew. Witcher reached the waterfall and then followed a path upwards towards the elven ruins. Instinct told the Witcher that the roses or remembrance were somewhere nearby. Indeed, Geralt soon saw the plant and could pick the flower he had been seeking. Our hero found a bush of roses of remembrance, leaning forward and picked what looked like an ordinary flower. A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose, a poet once wrote, but she was in the wrong regarding this one, for the flower really was the key to Geralt's memory. The ruins' atmosphere contributed to the intimate feeling both Geralt and Triss felt, yet intruders disturbed it. A band of thugs stealing the last surviving statues appeared in the ruins. This outraged Triss and provoked the plunderers, and a fight ensued. Geralt had to defend both his life and that of the sorceress. As if the banners were not enough, the ground beneath the Witcher and the sorcerer's feet caved in. The ceilings of the underground room, eroded by time, gave in and our heroes landed within. It was a beautiful bathhouse, elven built, and of course was still supplied and watered by a clean spring. However, Geralt was in no mood to admire the works of ancient masters. Witcher started looking for an exit. You should know that Geralt and Triss had grown very weary of missions ordered by the crown heads, and of saving the world, whether in entirety or in part, not to mention their exhaustion of pursuing secret organizations. After sharing a bath, they had a long talk about private things which had, until then, been continuously put off. Sources wanted to leave it all and flee as far as possible, to keep a low profile with Geralt somewhere away from the problems. The Witcher, however, wanted to repay his debt of gratitude to Roche, so he left to speak with them. Okay, Ren, what about the monstrosity in Flotsam? Well, Geralt had heard that a beast attacked a man on the pier, driven by professional curiosity, went to investigate. Indeed, it was as the people said, the unlucky victim lay on the pier. A riled crowd surrounded him, and he was commenting on the events. Among the onlookers took the sorceress Sheila de Tarnseville. The Witcher and the sorceress exchanged a few words before she asked Geralt for help in hunting down the dangerous beast. First, they needed to identify the species. An elf named Cedric was said to have the most knowledgeable about the local wildlife. Cedric lived in Lobaden, a village nested up against Flotham's walls. Humans paid him to keep this forest beast away from the hut, so he spent most of his time on treetop platforms, gazing in the forest thicket. The Witcher found the elf and questioned about the monster, learned that a poisonous mucus covered the beast, and so that a single touch of his tentacle could fell a towering man. Geralt needed decided he needed an antidote, but to make this he would first need a sample of the mucus. So he embarked on an expedition to the monster's lair, and Triss joined him. In Kayron's lair, Geralt learned that the monster's mucus was highly toxic. Triss gave our hero the formula for a potion that would render him immune to the beast's terrible venom, but he needed a herb known as osmer to make the drought. I've continued the story of the herb in another section of Dear Reader. Here we learn how the hunt of the Kayron progressed. After speaking with Sheila, Geralt was ready to fight the Kayron. Armed with the sword and knowledge, he went out to slay the monster. You should have seen the battle. The bridge's arch crumbled like the houses of cards, and the beast's blood mingled with its poisonous mucus. Finally, the Witcher, with much effort, won the day, and the beast was dead, and our hero could pick the reward he highly earned. Triss was in where is Triss Marigold? Triss was in danger. The Kingslayer wanted to force her to open a portal to Eärendil. Geralt ran to Flotsam as fast as he could. There was no time to lose. A single heartbeat could decide whether the sorceress lived or died. What of Flotsam? Yorveth had wanted his victory wrought broadly revenge upon the people of Flotsam. They in turn avenged themselves on the non-humans living in the trading post. It was a program that would echo throughout Temeria for years to come. Thatched roofs set alight, the streets are piled with corpses and smashed barricades. Geralt ran through the blood and flame to the end to find me waiting there. Only I knew what was happening with Triss. Somewhat surprised by Geralt's haste and preoccupied with the events occurring at the trading post, I answered the Witcher question with surprise, telling him Triss had gone to see Sheila. Then I looked at the Witcher's face and understood that this was no joke. I joined him for moral support. In Sheila's room, it looked like the devil had danced there. My trained eye immediately recognized that a fight happened. Feverishly, we searched for any clues to tell us what happened with Triss. The good book says, "He who seeks shall find." In the wall separating Sorcerer's room from the neighboring Den of Pleasure, we found a hole with at least one purpose. Someone could peek through it and see what was happening in Sheila's room. Never had the Witcher ran so fast to a brothel. Today I know what happened in that room, but back then it was a riddle and difficult one at that. At the brothel we learned that Triss had entered the room with the elf Cedric and spoke with someone through a magic device called a megascope. There had indeed been a fight, and Cedric, our sole witness, had fled through the trading post as gaze wounded. Ordinary folk would have to wait until the morning to begin their search, but no night is too dark for the Witcher and a dose of the cat potion. Unwilling to waste even a moment, Geralt went off to search for Cedric, following the trail of blood. Fortunately, it was too late for the elf. Before he died, he managed to explain that he would try to fight the Kingslayers in Sheila's room. Letho had forced Triss to open a portal through which the Tormentor and his victim departed the town of Vergen and Addern. I had a feeling Triss was dead, but the Witcher had to find her, of course, at least her body. The floating prison. Geralt was more eager for vengeance than ever. Above all else, however, he wanted to find Triss. He still believed the sorceress to be alive. He was not picky about its means to an end. It all began with the meeting with Scoia'tael. Geralt had reached an agreement with Yorveth. They planned to get the cliffs looming over the wharf. To plan the attack on the prison barge, our heroes need to assess the situation first. Asses. Dumbass. The Scoia'tael unit split up before attacking the barge. Geralt led his group to the wharf while Yorveth prepared the others to attack from other directions. Yorveth had waited his vengeance for long, perhaps too long. When the Scoia'tael had reached the harbor, they immediately began attacking humans. Willing or not, Geralt joined the attack. At the Flotsam Harbor, there stood a tower once used by toll collectors. This is where Laredo locked up and captured elven women, and when the wharf was attacked by the squirrels, the commander had the building set ablaze. It was an act of desperation, for the situation was already out of his control. Laredo knew that Geralt and the Scoia'tael would try to help those imprisoned in the fire, and thus giving him a chance to flee. The Witcher faced a dilemma: to save the elven women from the fire, or to pursue the criminal. Laredo was not mistaken. Geralt preferred to help the elven woman imprison the fire and gave up chasing the commander. The girls were saved while Laredo fled and evaded harsh Witcher's justice. Yorveth gnashed his teeth, but the hero quickly forgot about the commander of Flotsam's garrison. Soon he departed in his chase after Letho and Triss Marigold, whom he kidnapped for capturing the Kingslayer and saving the sorceress was the Witcher's primary goal. Right. In the Claws of Madness. Do you like ghost stories? You're going to hear a lot of them. Ghosts appear for the first time in the story in Flotsam, in a house standing in the depths of the forest, but let us start at the very beginning. It all began when Geralt was talking to Cedric. The elf told him about two men who had headed for a ruined mansion, a place where the mentally ill had once been kept, and had never come back. The Witcher was intrigued. He decided to see what happened to them. Not far from the ruins, Geralt found the first traveler. Rupert was sobbing by a tree, evidently looking for something. The moment he saw the Witcher, began begging for help for his friend Gridley, who had disappeared in the ruins. Witcher heard the howling of Neckers and understood that this was no joke. He reached for his sword. Upon entering the hospital's basement, Geralt experienced something even more paranormal than the usual fare for a Witcher. He saw a ghost that sent him a vision, everything around them starting to burn, and the specter, in a true ghostly fashion, passed through the wall into the next room. Geralt recovered and followed it, though not through the wall. Phantoms, like people, know how to set traps. Geralt thought the specter was attacked by a horde of hungry race. As he started to defend himself, he noticed a chest standing against the wall. The chest contained some of the doctor's notes. These stated that the medical staff had carried out experiments on the mentally ill. Geralt read on and learned that a group of soldiers had brought a Nilfgaardian prisoner to the hospital. Soldiers had wanted to interrogate him, but the notes did not reveal how that story ended. Geralt started searching the mansion, looking for signs Gridley might have left. Finally, Geralt managed to find Gridley. The poor soul was trying to keep imaginary specters at bay, raving about a fire and a girl that died in it. Geralt had to look for tranquilizers. Excuse me. Geralt found a bottle of medicine which he brought back to the hospital. Calmed by the medication, Gridley talked of past events. He and Rupert had been stationed in this place years ago. They killed the priest and tended the ill and tortured the captain Nilfgaardian, hoping to learn the location of a huge treasure. They set a fire to cover their tracks and bugged the most attractive patient. Hearing the story, Geralt understood that this place's curse and finding the tormented Nilfgaardian ghost was the key to the matter. Lost soul desired one thing, the death of his former oppressors. He still felt their stares upon him, and only death would bring him peace. He wanted to consume the eyes and the hearts of his tormentors. Geralt returned to Gridley and took him back to the surface to Rupert. Richard had already decided how to lift the curse. Then he lured Rupert and Gridley into a trap, telling him he disposed of the wraith. Hungover. You may remember that Geralt decided to have a friendly drink with Roche's men. He awoke later on with the monstrous hangover and nagging feeling he had done something he should not have. He decided to learn the truth and question the Madame. Well, the get-together had gone so well that virtually all its participants had lost touch with reality. Only Vesta remained lucid and tried to rein in the friends and the Witcher. To no avail, Geralt wanted to speak to the young woman. So what had happened? Believe it or not, in a drunken stupor, the Witcher had his neck tattooed. For that Roche's evening onward is forever to wear the band of the blue stripes. Until I took off the tattoo. Okay. The Decker contract. In spite of events, Geralt had not forgotten his profession. Witchering was his prime source of income, so when he learned that the Flotsam authorities had posted a bounty for exterminating Neckers, he accepted the job immediately. Before he began, he decided to learn more about the vicious creatures. He began looking for books about Neckers and searching the creatures to observe their behavior. Geralt learned that the local Neckers use a system of underground tunnels to move about. He thought if he could just find and destroy all the entrances to these tunnels, most of the Neckers would be buried alive. Those remaining would likely then scatter, making it all easier to exterminate them. The Witcher acted on this idea. The Neckers were thus buried in the underground dens, and Geralt went to Louis Merce for his well-earned reward. Louis Merce nodded approvingly, filled the THX 114 form, and having paid the Witcher, wished him much luck. Then our hero left, thinking about what to spend his hard-earned orens on. The Integra contract. The Integras were multiplying in the Flotsam areas. The monsters had become a scourge that Bernard Laredo, though stingy by nature, posted a bounty for their extermination. The Witcher accepted the job and decided that a little theoretical preparation might pay off. Reading about the Indegra's habits would be worth it. The Integras are very similar to butterflies, except that they are ugly, cannot fly, and would choke on cabbage. Alright, maybe they're like butterflies, but they do weave cocoons. The Witcher learned that destroying these cocoons would draw the Integra queens, and their deaths would be the end of the swarm. The idea proved to be right in target. The Witcher dealt with the Integras and went to see Louise Merce about the reward. Louise Merce filled out the WL-17 form and paid the Witcher, but not before deducting a monstrous tax. Thus ended the Integra adventure. Troll trouble. In practicing their trade, Witchers abide by a code that clearly explains what they can and cannot do. Geralt claims he invented the code himself to have an excuse for refusing unwanted jobs, but I think it's a stratagems that would be too complicated for him. Either way, Geralt noticed that Bernard Laredo had posted the bounty and that the troll living in the area. Because the troll is a sapient creature, falls under the code as huntable only if evil. The curious Witcher decided to check it out. Alright. On the forest road, he met a farmer from Lobanon and learned some things about the problems with the local troll. The monster once worked on the bridge on the river, but took to drinking and started causing trouble. The peasant had intrigued Geralt. They besieged him to talk with Chorab, the leader of Lobanon, before killing the troll. Chorab had a particular request. Not only did he not want the monster to die, but he wanted Witcher to cure the troll's alcoholism. Things are starting to get interesting. Geralt had the talk with the troll, man to man. Turned out the monster fell into addiction after his wife had been killed, an event that must have been like the talk of the Flotsam. Geralt decided to question his acquaintances. Witcher learned that the female troll had been killed by one Dimitri, who had sold her head as a trophy to Sindler. It was that poacher who told Geralt that one of Dimitri's men hung around the inn. Geralt headed for Flotsam. The ruffian spilled the beans, and Geralt learned that Dimitri was up to something in the cemetery near Lobanon. Geralt killed Dimitri and the bandits at the burial ground. The lucky bastards wouldn't have to go far now. The female troll was avenged, and the Witcher went to see her husband. The troll was happy as befit his size, that is immensely. He traded alcoholism for workaholism and began repairing the bridge. Geralt knew Korab would be pleased and went to get his well-earned reward. Geralt picked his well-earned reward from Korab and left, content that he aided the local community and had a hand in the development of infrastructure, solved an alcohol problem, and get paid on top of it all. Alright, bring these. Still a bunch of stuff. Bringing off Flotsam. Though it was perhaps one of the less celebrated episodes in the Witcher's career, know that while in Flotsam, Geralt managed to be best skinny Sten. With that modest achievement under his belt, he could face Riley Wilkes. Did not take long for Riley Wilkes, a man seemingly woven from snooze alone, to bow to the strength of the Witcher's arm. Now was Big Max's turn. Big Max strained and wheezed, but the Witcher proved the stronger arm wrestler. One more opponent, the strongest in them all, remained as Bartholomew Bargy of the village of Lobanon. Geralt arranged to meet Bart Bargy for the final contest near his workshop by the river. The young boat builder had little time, but he agreed to wait there for Witcher to warm up. I bet a tidy sum on Bargy and lost it all. The Witcher smashed the boat builder's hand down on the table with a loud thud. Then he began a quick chat. The Witcher learned that the Bard had once been bested by Adam Pangrit himself. Our hero left the table as a champion Flotsam, the glow of victory surrounding him. Poker face Flotsam. When Geralt was staying in Vizima, who's less known among the gamblers as a Witcher, more as a consummate dice poker player. His fame spread across all of Temeria and were bound to the people in Flotsam who would recognize him as a gambling partner. Geralt was immediately invited for a game with 2 local players. He also learned about a third, the local champion, a man who wouldn't just play with anyone. Luck was on the Witcher's side. He left the table victorious, and had to still defeat the other players. First things first, a hero provided that luck was inside and could try tackling more challenging opponents. A certain merchant was hanging around the inn and was the first league player on the list. Before long, the Witcher took out the first opponent of the poker league, and thus he had the right to play against the dwarf Einir Guzzle. The dwarf provided to be good company. Geralt played with the genuine pleasure. He won, which allowed him to face Sindler. The poacher from Lobanon was crafty like a fox, but luck finally failed him. He was outplayed by Geralt, and the Witcher bested all opponents, became the champion of Flotsam. The scent of incense. Do you like the scent of incense? Then listen. Geralt met a scholar at the harbor. The man claimed to be one of the local shopkeepers? Wow. Sold incense producing poisonous smoke. You cannot prove the murderous tale without producing a recipe for the incense. Geralt promised to get the man a recipe for a tidy sum orens. Geralt got the recipe, of course. It was for an incense with a very similar composition, and the Witcher thought the scholar would not see the difference. A good scholar takes nothing at face value, and the Witcher gave him the incense recipe. The scholar from the arbor wanted to test its authenticity at his laboratory and agreed to meet the Witcher on the market side of the gate. The Witcher agreed to have his eyes covered and was led his employees' hideout. Thus he walked straight into a trap. It was a trap set by amateurs, and Geralt was a professional. Geralt dealt with his employer and the others. Science was unharmed, however, because they all turned out to be fist-deck dealers and remnants of Salamandra, an organization which had crossed the Witcher long ago. 1-1 Flotsam. Geralt noticed that what appeared to be the fist-fighting tournament in Flotsam Inn. He decided to test his abilities. He had honed on dungeon guards. His first opponent was Sticko. The fight with Sticko, the sot was a cakewalk, and which was not ready to tackle a man called Flipbars. Geralt's next opponent was Knob Ransel, aka Flipbars. He fell to the floor as quickly as the one before him. Geralt was in his prime, but the next contender, Tiny Tibby Tib, was a famed ruffian. Tibby Tib was bested. The Witcher won the inn tournament. Fight Club. King Ziggy, a man of noble birth who was surrounding himself with men despicable status, took note of Geralt's fist-fighting successes. He offered him a chance to participate in another tournament, which was supposed to be fights for especially selected men. Participants' glory and reward would be guaranteed. Ziggy tended to appear in front of the inn at the evenings, and it was there that Geralt met him again. King Ziggy took Geralt to Lyrido's residence, making it clear that the commander was the patron of the fist-fight duels of Flotsam. So Geralt participated in the tournament under Laredo's enlightened patronage. The rules were simple. Each contender would remain in the game until his first defeat. After he rewarded a fondness of thrashing bumpkins meant the Witcher would not hesitate. His first opponent out to be a frail fist fighter called Twigs. In old days, he was known for his right hook, but his career was brutally ended during the duel with the Witcher. A hero quickly won and quickly prepared for another fight. Matho entered the ring with a sure step. Self-confident is a must-have trait for a fist fighter, but may not be sufficient alone to make a champion. Geralt defeated Matho with skill compared to that of a young bear pulling honey from a hive. His opponent's blows like irritating buzzing of bees. However, the subsequent opponent looked more dangerous. Once Smug-faced entered the ring, the audience cheered with enthusiasm. They fully expected to see a fist-fighting of piece of art instead of ballet. Spectres got a heavy, brutal duel, and Geralt won, yet not without difficulties. The victories did not end the tournament, however. Everything went smoothly until the final fight with the former champion from Rizima, named Zednik. Laredo offered the Witcher money to throw the fight, or to make Zednik a Witcher vanquisher and enhance his career. Our hero refused the offer, which is not difficult to understand. Were the erstwhile foes and ancient champions. The aura of greatness, which Zednik excluded, burst like a soap bubble touching a porcupine once the fist fighter hit the floor. Geralt won, however, against Laredo's intentions, and was very happy with his victory. The Commandant, however, ground his teeth in anger. Whether anyone liked it or not, Geralt became the fist-fighting champion of Flotsam. Other challenges awaited him in the future, but the victory of Laredo was the sweetest. Military's art. Traveling can be educational. In Flotsam, Geralt learned that the talisman he had considered to be worthless actually had power in a name. And Zeka could restore its abilities by performing a magical ritual. What she needed: ingredients, a tongue of a troll, the eyes of an Ericus, the fetus of Integra, and the essence of death. Collecting fragments of monster corpses is quite normal for a hero. Geralt traveled the length and breadth of Flotsam and surroundings and found all their ingredients. Even so, obtaining a troll's tongue was no simple task. Yeah, it was the merchant sold it, I just bought it. Anyway, Geralt searched the surroundings of Flotsam far and wide and found the ingredients. Though getting his troll tongue was not easy. He gave the components to Zeka. Girl agreed to meet the Witcher at the altar of Eopatis in the middle of the forest. She said she'll be there every night, for she'll be able to perform the ritual, releasing Taladin's power only there in the moonlight. Geralt arrived at the meeting place, and Zeka began the rite. However, the Witcher would not watch the ceremony in peace. He had to defend the girl from rage drawn from the source of magic for months, like moths to a flame. They were ghosts of the dead for the times when humans only stared to colonize the Pontar Valley, and faith in Eopatis was strong. Thanks to Zeka's abilities to Geralt's persistence, the ritual was not interrupted and calmly came to an end. Talisman's powers awakened, and the witch gave the Witcher the powerful artifact named Meliteli's Heart. Future events will show how helpful is amulet's protective aura. Alright, let's do this. Go with the last little set. Melina. Geralt was wandering around Lobodin when he noticed several guards harassing an elven woman, Melina. The guards seemed to be hurling grave accusations at her. Ever since the displays of intolerance, the Witcher decided to investigate. The elf stood accused of spying for the Scoia'tael and leading guards to an ambush. It was a grave accusation, and if she turned out to be guilty, she'd be executed. Geralt decided to look into the case. He was headed to the cave where the guards had gone. He wanted to find out more about their fate. Elf made arrows were lodged in the soldiers' bodies, therefore the accusations against Melina were true. The soldiers had been killed by the squirrels, and their bodies fed to the monsters. Geralt went outside where the elven woman awaited under guard. Geralt decided to keep the truth to himself. He did not mention the elven arrows, blaming the guards' death on monsters. The soldiers left to face the sour, and Melina thanked the Witcher, proposed to meet him by the waterfall near the elven ruins. Geralt had high hopes for the rendezvous and was taken by surprise by the Scoia'tael that attacked him for cover. Melina fled, and the Witcher fought desperately for his life. The Witcher escaped with his life. Leaving the ambush site, he wondered where to look for Melina. He had a few things to tell her. The elven girl tried to find refuge in the ruined hospital. She was captured. She was trembling with fear, and our hero let her go. He forbade Melina from ever returning to Flotsam, however, and she never did. Woe to the vanquished. When fate plays tricks on the Witcher, these tricks are usually unpleasant. How surprised then when the family of Burger, saved from the full soldiers of La Valette's castle, found him in Flotsam. Geralt accepted the thanks but did not accept their money. He always reminisced fondly about that event. At the crossroads, Scoia'tael. Geralt was at the crossroads. He had to save Triss Merigold. He was incapable of handling this problem alone. Witcher needed to back up, a fact he knew too well. After our discussion, it turned out that he could either ask Yorveth or Vernon Roche for help. but cooperation with one excluded good relations with the other. Geralt went to make his choice, but did he choose Yorveth? Yes, he did. The Witcher and the Elf made a deal. In exchange for help in liberating prisoners kept on the barge, Yorveth pledged to take Geralt to Adder in a place where the sorceress in distress was. Mystic River. In the monster's lair, Geralt spotted the wreck of a large riverboat. Within its scattered hull lay a corpse which, as it turned out, was that of the boat's captain. On the corpse, Geralt found a key. Picking it up, he instinctively looked around for a lock it might open. The key to the Witcher found on the corpse matched a rusty chest nearby. In it, Geralt found the journal of Petra Shele's captain, and a copy that therefore packed for shipment to the University of Oxenford. Our hero concluded that the captain had intended to provide a report of his journey, but failed to dispatch the manuscript for unknown reasons. Witcher decided to do him the small favor of using the Royal Mail that all Temerian officials could access. And who he was by the king's will was the ranking official Flotsam. His answer to this question was simple. Having read the captain's journal, Geralt noted that 2 boats had sailed the Pontar. Our heroes felt he could be be lucky enough to come across the wreck of the second vessel, Witcher's hunch was rarely wrong. The hero concluded that corrected the captain and wished to give account of his journey. However, he not managed to send the manuscript off. Witcher decided to do it for him using the Royal Mail, to which only Temerian clerks had access, and who was the ranking official in Flotsam. The answer was simple. Geralt found the postbox. He thought it would contain secret information carried by special couriers. Laredo's letters be interesting reads, so without a second thought, Witcher resolved to get his hands on the contents of the mailbox. Geralt found a letter to visiting officials in the mailbox in Louise Mercer's house. This suggested that Mercer had contemptuously dismissed the charges of corruption, mismanagement, and colluding with bandits against Laredo. Seeing that Mercer openly disdained his superiors in the capital, not fearing any unpleasant consequences. Geralt kept this fact in mind for future reference. Above all, however, our hero placed the parcel from Petra Shele's captain in the box. I can tell you it reaches a dressy and caused quite a stir, but that's a topic for another story. I like that. The fact that I sent out that letter might actually mean we can either go to Oxenford or have some repercussions in Witcher 3. Or good things happen. Whatever. Something happened there. That's awesome. I love that they just added that. Simple sentence changes a lot. Anyway, Geralt found a letter to one death mold in the mailbox in Bernard Laredo's mansion. Suggested that the commander had not been all that upset by Foltest's death. Seemed more interested in King Henseld's health. Apparently, Laredo was colluding with the Kedwinians and had far-reaching plans. The commander also apologized for his mother's behavior, which confirmed the rumors that she was eccentric. The Cairn Osmert. The Cairn's mucus is not only poisonous, but is also magical. A factress miracle confirmed beyond all doubt. A herb known as Ostmert was necessary to prepare this antidote. The plant, as is widely known, grows underground in very damp places. Geralt considered whether to search for such a place himself, or to ask Cedric for help. Having in the past worn his boots down to the long treads of pursuit of lousy rewards, Geralt decided to give his feet some rest and choose the second option. He went to see Cedric and asked him about Osmert. As luck would have it, the elf sent him on another trek deep into the forest to a cave beneath some elven ruins. Geralt found some Osmert in a damp cave beneath the elven ruins, and then used the herb to prepare a potion that protected from the Cairn's lethal venom. The potion was safely hidden in the Witcher's bag in anticipation with the fight with the Cairn. Must admit that the potion worked exceptionally well in the fight against the huge beast, which would probably best the Cairn even without the protection offered by the brew, but after all, he was a professional. He valued his life too much to expose himself to unnecessary risk. The Cairn a matter of price. The sorcerers never do anything out of the kindness of their hearts, and for the simple reason that they have stones instead of hearts. Shele had said enough of talking and wouldn't lift a finger against the monster until the price of the contract was set. The artless Witcher would never have thought to do things that way, but since the sorceress lifting her finger can be mighty helpful in any situation, particularly ones that involve killing huge monsters, a hero went to haggle with the merchants at the harbor. Passing along the waterfront, the Witcher approached a merchant who was willing to pay for the beast to be slain. Geralt never liked haggling, but he did it often on account of his profession, so he managed to agree on a good price. With much effort and small help from Shele de Tarnseville, the Cairn was finally slain. Not give the best of the part on any contract, Geralt would see the merchant on the waterfront and collect his reward. Full pouch of orange improved Geralt's movement as a fair compensation for the difficult fight. With the Karen freed from danger, the townsfolk of Flotsam breathed a sigh of relief, and foreign merchants could finally set off. Everything was just like the old stories before the time the Witchers began to have second thoughts and dabble in politics. The Ballista. While visiting Commandant, Geralt had a chance to admire Laredo's newest acquisition. It was neither the swift steed nor a piece of the local ruler's art collection. It was a brand new ballista, aimed straight at the harbor. As you can see, midlife crisis can assume many different forms. Margarita, a local prostitute, offered to help. She promised to strike the guards that provided the Witcher would first humiliate a couple of bullies named Myron and Alphonse. The two brutes liked to beat up girls from the brothel, and Geralt was to teach them a lesson. The Witcher was always sensitive to the plight of women and agreed to help the courtesan. Geralt decided to defeat both bruisers at arm wrestling, proved that they were not as tough as they thought, and you should have seen their faces. Our hero had fulfilled this end of the bargain. Margarita went forth to do her work. The Witcher watched with admiration as the woman seduced the guard with minimal effort. With the war machine no longer guarded, Geralt got to work. Skillful as an experienced saboteur, he removed part of the triggering mechanism, thus completely disabling of the ballista. Damage was hard to notice, and it would be harder to repair. In any case, Laredo's new tour is now useless. Little Shop of Dreams. In Flotsam's town square, Geralt met some inhabitants protesting a shopkeeper for selling dubious herbs. As you know, witchers and herbalists always meet aversion, but in this case it turned out to be a little different. The protest leader, Matilda Sasbo, asked Geralt to make the shopkeeper close his business. Our hero uses diplomatic talents again. The Witcher convinced the owner of the shop to close his stinking business when he returned to Matilda Sasbo to be rewarded for his efforts. The reward gladdened the eye and loaded the money bags nicely. Geralt moved along to spread justice and prosperity. All right, he went off to do his job. Sword for monsters. A Witcher stripped of a monster-fighting sword is like a dwarf without a beard. Geralt's silver blade had flown off with the dragon just after the memorable encounter in the walls of La Valette Castle, so our hero needed a new one. The best thought, certainly not the way to acquire one, was to have it forged by the dwarf blacksmith who had a workshop in Flotsam's non-human district. Silver sword in hand at last, Geralt's job became incomparably easier, and finally equipped like a witch should be, our hero took to solving his own and other problems with renewed energy. Blasphemer's outfit. Who could have known that the diagrams of the infamous Blasphemer's outfit would turn up in Flotsam? I have no notion of what I speak. I hasten to explain that according to legend, the Blasphemer is one of the three brothers who vowed to recover treasures with the dragon Ostaverga blundered from the temple of Freya. The priestess of the deity, intent on regaining the treasure, gave each brother a set of ancient diagrams detailing sacred armor that would protect them from the blows of Ostric's tail. When the youngest of the three abandoned his mission, he was cursed. From that moment on, he was known as the Blasphemer, and his armor became known as the Blasphemer's outfit. He was invincible as long as he wore the complete outfit. When one day he lost a single gauntlet, the curse was fulfilled and the man perished. As the dark spells never lifted, anyone wearing bits and pieces of the outfit remained in peril of death, and he who donned the complete set would become invincible. The Blasphemer's outfit included gauntlets, boots, trousers, jacket, and 2 swords, steel and silver, and thus made a deal for a witcher who did not fear the curse. The task seemed impossible. Geralt acquired all the necessary diagrams and hired a proficient craftsman to make the Blasphemer's outfit. The Dark Legend was reborn, and with it the Freya's curse. Witcher could enjoy the arms and armor and the benefits they provided, but he needed to be wary as an outfit appears to where they severely feel lost just if he failed to don but one of its component parts. At a crossroads, Vernon Roche. Have I mentioned Geralt is not good at taking decisions? He's all about lunging forward without thought, not minding the dangers, not caring for the consequences, and truth he's unequaled at that. He is thoughtful enough, however, to consult his friends in the most important cases. After the King Sarah's escape, we had a serious talk, and though the final decision was his, I think I managed to explain a few things to him. To find truth, Geralt had to ask either Vernon Roche or Yorvith for help. Cooperating with one excluded good relations to the other, Geralt went to make his choice, but did he choose Roche? No, he didn't. Our hero decided to cooperate with Yorvith. Rest assured, however, that the Witcher would cross paths with Vernon Roche again. Thank you for watching.